Mario Kart 8, or it's Mario Kart World is the way that it's called. Mario Kart World is the name of it. The digital version of this game is going to be $80. The physical version of this game is going to be the physical version of this game is going to be $90.
Get the ball rolling. Get it started.
Why would we get a ball? Why would we roll a ball? This is a podcast.
Well, are we not talking about bowling today? I figured we were.
No, we're not talking about bowling. We're going to talk about, the Spider-Man news. That's my biggest thing from CinemaCon is the Spider-Man news, to be totally honest.
Release date. Thank God.
We got a release date. Well, okay. So here's the thing. For I can't even remember what's the animated one's title? The animated I cannot remember it to save my life.
Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Is it just Beyond? Okay, it is just Beyond the Spider-Verse. That was the first thing that came into my head, but I doubted myself. But Beyond the Spider-Verse, we've gotten like 7 release dates for it. So we'll see if this one sticks. The brand new home one is huge just because the comic that is based off of.
And I think Eric Voss might finally get his dream of Mephisto being being a reality.
I think the problem is they've already had so many differences between the how the brand new world starts off and this story that they're trading in. I guess technically not Doctor Strange for Mephisto, but in a way it's Doctor Strange for Mephisto because that's who removes the memories.
Right.
Yeah, but I saw Coy was talking about he literally probably while I was eating dinner, he got out of watching the live action How to Train Your Dragon movie. They've already confirmed that they're making a second live action How to Train Your Dragon movie.
Yeah.
And he said the first one was pretty good actually. He said it was actually good. I'm just going to say, I did not doubt that it was going to be good. The question that I've always had is it necessary? Is it necessary to have all these live actions? Because, for instance, the new Snow White one, there was the Snow White that just came out.
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely fucking useless.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to watch it. And I love the Disney princess movies. Don't get me wrong. I love the Disney princess movies. Sure. I have seen one, and we talked about it last week, Beauty and the Beast. That's the only live action remake Disney one that I've seen. Yeah. I thought it was good. Was it necessary? No, but I think it was good in its own right. From what I've heard, all the other ones are garbage. Oh, I have seen the Lion King one, but that's not a Disney princess one.
It's a Disney movie in a remake, and that's the thing I say with a bunch of these. I think the only ones I'm dead set certain on that I'm okay, these are good and I can watch these, and I actually would argue they might be better than the originals, is the Lily James 2015 Cinderella and the live action remake of The Jungle Book are the only two movies I go, okay.
I don't even think I've seen live action Jungle Book, I'm gonna be honest with you.
The Jungle Book one is actually pretty good. It's not bad at all. I actually really enjoy it. So
we also have the live action not live, it's always been live action, but the Jurassic Park or Jurassic World movie, Coy said they showed some stuff that was pretty hype. Which I think we've talked about this previously, maybe off camera, but I have not seen, I think I've seen the first 2 Jurassic World movies, and I think there's 4 of them, or this would be the 4th one or something.
I think Jurassic World fell off pretty much after that second movie. It really should have just had that first movie, that big, okay, the park's actually active, and we still made a mistake because we made it an active park. People are dying.
Yeah.
They should have left it at that. They shouldn't have, even made it into a trilogy. And now we're making it into a franchise. We're on the 4th friggin' movie of this thing. Which not to say that it can be bad. I mean, look at the Saw movies. Saw 10 is actually good. Who would have ever said that about a Saw movie?
I don't think it's a problem with long running series. I think it's series without direction. You can have, the Marvel universe, they technically, I guess they're not sequels to each other because they're mostly trilogies put together, but they had specifically with the original, like, 10-year run, they had a direction that they went. Now, obviously, there's the question that we've talked about previously of, are they going to be able to live up to that again?
Sure.
I think we talked about it very briefly, but, like, the interesting news of the whole cast announcement, and obviously, I don't believe that's the entire cast. I think it's been basically confirmed that that's not the entire cast.
They've literally come out and said that there will be more announcements. Like, I saw a thing from you know who Daniel RPK is? Have you heard of that? Like, insider.
Yeah.
Apparently, he said that they're like Halle Berry is like finalizing her deal now, and that's why she like wasn't.
Well, I think that's the other thing is now before. So with the new Spider-Man movie, does that I wish I would have looked into this. Does that release before Doomsday or right after Doomsday? Because the first movie that came after Endgame, or was it after Infinity War, was a Spider-Man movie, right? It was after Infinity War we got a Spider-Man movie.
After Endgame.
After Endgame it was okay, yeah. So this is going to be after Doomsday.
Spider-Man Brand New Day is directly after Doomsday, and it's just before Vision Quest? Question mark? I think. I can't remember.
I wonder if it's going to take place right after.
They said it takes place simultaneously. So Doomsday and Brand New Day are
maybe that's why maybe that's why Tom Holland wasn't in the Doomsday cast announcement, is because
I don't think
he'll obviously be in Secret Wars, but it might be, if it's running in tandem, you might get some tiddlywinks maybe of what's going on.
Sure.
But I think based on the way the last Spider-Man movie ended, they're trying to go back to that like friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, like down to earth vibe. And then of course they're gonna throw him directly into Secret Wars, and it's all gonna go buck wild again. But
right.
But yeah.
Well, and sticking more with like not regular film news. I love the MCU, but non-superhero related projects. I told you a few minutes ago that like they made an announcement, and I don't know how to feel about it, because on one hand I'm like super hyped for it. This is the greatest thing ever for me because I love this movie a lot. But on the other hand, I'm like, I don't know what to do because this doesn't feel necessary. You remember the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the one that I made you watch? Yeah. So they're making a sequel movie with Brad Pitt's character. Tarantino is writing it, and then David Fincher is actually directing it. That's not a joke. It's a real thing. This isn't a joke. It's confirmed at CinemaCon.
I have one question, and we should probably move on.
Yeah,
and I don't even want you to answer this. Who the fuck asked for that?
I didn't.
Like,
I love that movie,
period.
but I didn't ask for this.
Like, you know, I'm not nearly as high on that movie as you are, but I can understand kind of its merits in a way.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like a sequel to the Joker movie. No one asked. No one wanted it. They just are making it for money. And it's not even because Quentin Tarantino was the director of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right? It was Quentin Tarantino film.
Yeah.
And you're saying Quentin Tarantino isn't even filming the next this whatever sequel, whatever?
He's writing it, which he's done that before. Like he wrote Dusk Till Dawn from '89, but that was like that was only a writing credit, and then he didn't direct it. He's written other stuff, but he's never like actually, like, his biggest things are when he's directed and written them, because they're his own work start to finish. I also wouldn't be surprised if that was like CinemaCon's like April Fool's joke that I just didn't get.
There were quite a lot of April Fool's jokes that I saw of like additional cast announcements from the Doomsday one, where they just IGN did that, where they like CGI'd a bunch of new names in there.
But like, so, but I knew I don't know, because CinemaCon, I don't think
CinemaCon themselves did not do any. CinemaCon themselves, from what I saw, did not do any April Fool's jokes. Well, other companies did them around it, but
well, and that's why I'm uncertain about this, because genuinely I saw this from multiple different sources and they were all different. Like, it's not like it came from one source.
It's probably real.
It might be real.
There's been a lot of really surprising things coming out of CinemaCon. So I wouldn't be surprised.
But anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Nerdy Nimrods podcast, the only podcast in the world where your two favorite Nimrods talk all things nerdy. I am one of your hosts this evening, Carson, aka Juggernaut, with
Brandon, aka Parrotfish.
And today we are discussing, I'm so excited for this topic. You don't understand. We are discussing Andor Season 1. Brandon, how are we, buddy? How we feeling?
I don't think this will make it into the cold open. We talked very briefly, I think, when I turned on the recording, but we're recording this on a Wednesday. We're recording this way earlier than we normally do. I got back from the gym and scarfed down some dinner, set up my laptop, and now I'm here. I have not relaxed all day because today is an office day, so I am very tired. And we're probably going to be recording until past midnight. So we'll see. I have the energy of that post-gym, post-dinner. So we'll see how long that lasts. How are you doing, Carson?
I relaxed all day today. I didn't have work today. I actually got to sit in a chair outside with my grandma. We just talked for about 4 hours. I went to have a beer at a bar. I'm basically describing about
you're the polar opposite day to me. You're the polar opposite day to me.
And I still showed up late to the recording.
Yeah. We were supposed to start recording at 8:30. And obviously you guys can't see this because there's no like timestamp on this. It's 9:14 right now. Now, granted, the cold open's been running for like 10 minutes. We started it over 30 minutes late. Thank you, Carson.
It's so funny to me. I just made that connection. But no, man. I mean, all jokes aside, I'm doing good. It's been a pretty good few days since the last recording. But I binged the entirety of Andor within 2 days. So
pretty
I'm
impressive.
Like fresh. I'm fresh off of it. I'm excited to talk about it. But I
was just gonna say, I'm gonna be totally honest, and we'll talk about this more later. I've seen Andor once. So this conversation, I'm very curious for, because you're going to be refreshing my memory. I wore the Star Wars hat in honor of this, with my Creed shirt because I got back from the gym.
Well, and also I did also. I know you didn't, but I rewatched Rogue One today as well. Okay, I want to see where this, where he actually ends up. I want to see the connections that they kind of made as far as like a prequel show go. So yeah, I'm just excited to talk about it. I'm gonna have a very opinionated thought about this show, and you're probably gonna kill me for it too. But I also didn't expect to say that right now. So, but with that being said, Brandon, what you been consuming? What you been watching?
We were talking about this before the episode. Way too many things, and not enough things in other areas. So I'm gonna keep some of these more brief than I typically would, just because again it's late and we have a lot to cover. I'll start off first with, we had the season 2 finale of Solo Leveling. This was only a few days ago. I would say it's one of the weaker episodes of the season. It was a really nice wrap up to the season. I will say that. But it also didn't really do anything special and kind of just felt like, obviously an end of a season is supposed to build up to the next season. So you did have some of that. Actually, you had a lot of that. Because now Sung Jinwoo, his powers are like known to the world now. For the most part, he still has a lot of secrets. And so there's a lot more eyeballs on him. They defeated Beeroo. He has a new shadow in his army. Which, like, all that we get to see, all that's really cool. The animation of the Arise scene for Beeroo is phenomenal. I mean, the animation in the show in general, like, I think I made this comment previously, but they're very clearly whipping these animators, unfortunately, because there's no way that you could get this done on a normal schedule with good working conditions. But no, I think overall, my major problem with this, and you can tell this through the episode, is we do not have a confirmation of season 3. Not even like a confirmation on like when it's going to happen. I think there have been said that there is a chance that there won't be a season 3, at least for a long time, which is shocking for how popular this show is.
Sure.
But I feel like the reason why I bring that up is because it kind of leaks into, like, that sentiment to me kind of leaked into the last like 5 minutes of this episode, where it's kind of just like a weird montage in a way that like the first season when it ended, it like flowed really nicely into season 2. This one, I feel like, I don't know how to describe it. Like I said, it was like a weird montage style thing of like, where is everyone in the world? And Sung Jin Woo's stuck in traffic. And
where is everyone?
Yeah, it kind of felt like a weird, like, like, I don't know if I'm the only one that feels this way, but it felt like they were purposefully putting a stopgap in terms of like, okay, now granted, if the story ended here, I wouldn't be happy about it because, like I said, they did have plenty of things to build into season 3, so I do feel like we're going to get that season 3. But I don't know. Like I said, I didn't have a ton to talk about with this episode because there were interesting story elements that happened. There were some characters that got introduced that we know like practically nothing about. They're seemingly insanely strong. That I know are going to be a really big part of the next season, but that's like, again, it just left so many more questions, and we don't even know if / when those are going to get answered. And again, it was a good episode. Like, I definitely think it was one of the weaker ones, but I did not hate it. I typically would have a lot more to talk about with Solo Leveling, but like, again, it was kind of just a weird episode to me. But that leaves me more time to talk about the other things. I'll end with the biggest thing. Well, not the biggest thing, but there's a very key thing that's technically not a thing I've watched. Like, Carson knows what I'm referencing. Something that happened today that was huge because we're recording this on a Wednesday, a very particular Wednesday. But I'll save that for the end. Obviously, I've been reading Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. That's another one, again, because we're recording on a Wednesday, I haven't gotten all that far into compared to last episode. We're in a really interesting place, though, right now, because the last place that we left off was when Dokja Kim, the main character, was dead. He died, or died. Obviously, we knew he was going to come back. We knew he had a resurrection ability. He has an ability that gives him essentially 9 lives. And so we obviously knew he would come back. But this one, he can't come back for, I believe it's 72 hours, if I remember correctly. So there's obviously that period where no one knows that he has this ability. Now, people expect, because this isn't the first time he's died and come back, but this is the longest time he has stayed dead. So there was a lot of people that were kind of asking questions in the sense of like his friends being like, oh, is he actually dead? And then he came back. But with him dying, he gets invited to a constellation banquet. And I think I've mentioned this to you in the past, Carson, but essentially the constellations are like the gods of this world, or are they? And that's something that's really interesting, that we're kind of getting a little bit more background to the way that these scenarios are built and the reason for this world's existence. But essentially he gets invited to this dinner, and all the constellations love him because he's the main character. He's super, super strong, whatever. He makes really interesting, like, but he denies all of them. And while I say he's the main character of our story, the story that we're reading, he's technically not the main character of the story that this is based off of. Because again, this is based off of a story within a story. So there's also the like main character of the original story that he is, let's call it frenemies. Essentially they kind of hate they don't hate each other. Jay, because that's the only thing I can call him by, because I don't know how to pronounce his name. Jay, the main character in the original story, was hates Dokja, like hates him, but he knows that he's necessary. And Dokja does a lot of things to piss off Jay. And it's so funny to watch their dynamic. But anyway, we go through the constellation dinner. It's kind of, I don't want to say boring, but it's very story heavy. There's like no action whatsoever, because it just kind of gives us a little bit more of a background into the hierarchy, because there's constellations at different levels. You have your historical constellations, which are essentially like, now granted, these are all Korean and Japanese, so we're not going to know any of these characters, but think of it in the sense of like Christopher Columbus would be a historical constellation. Like he would be in that realm. Or George Washington would be another great one because there's a lot of army generals that are historical constellations. But then you have your like fabled constellations. These are like the Olympic gods. The Garden of Eden is there. You have literally Ariel from the Bible that is in this story.
Right.
And you kind of get a sense of the hierarchy of they're all powerful beings, but they're not. And there's like the tiers to this. So then we go through that whole thing. I won't spoil everything of this for you because again, it will get animated and you will watch it. But there are a lot of very interesting story beats happen. What I really want to talk about is so Dokja gets resurrected, obviously.
Yes.
And they're already back on Earth. They're already in the middle of their next scenario, which is this big demon castle that they have to go and kill a bunch of demons. And Dokja is super, super strong, so he breezes through all of this. Now, he has a little bit of struggle, but we'll breeze past that. They get to this part, there's layers to the castle. He gets to the next layer of the castle, and they're basically presented with this, like, village that is a peaceful land, free of the scenarios, where kind of like, you remember what I talked about last week with the church that was like, oh, we want to free everyone from the scenarios, but kind of does it really shittily and not really successful at all. So this is the actual, this has nothing to do with the church, but is actually seemingly a successful version of what that church was trying to accomplish. Inside this demon dungeon with all these terrible beasts, there's this happy society with people of all races just living and being happy. And there's this leader who's this really like kind, gentle-hearted person. Come to find out, they're not. And the only way that they can keep up this peace is by sacrificing people. Now, most people don't know this. There's a select few who do. But that's where it gets into a really big ethical quandary that I'm still in the middle of. That it'll be the last thing I talk about, just because it's kind of a big question mark in the sense of, it's a big question that gets asked all the time. Is the lives of a few worth the lives of many? And essentially what I mean by that is, if these lives aren't sacrificed, this entire village of all of these people, women, children, men, would die. They would just be wiped out. And there's a time stamp on this, in the sense of, if they don't keep sacrificing, they're screwed. And we're kind of asking that question right now, because the more powerful the person is, the more their sacrifice is worth. So one of the like friends of Dokja is currently being faced with this, where the leader of this society asked her and was like, hey, if you sacrifice yourself, we can guarantee another 10 years of freedom. And she kind of sits down with herself and is like, is my life worth, like obviously the noble thing to do would be to sacrifice yourself, but there's this really, I love the art in this so much because it portrays so much emotion, and you can tell the dread that she feels of like, I feel like I'm being so selfish right now, but what about my life? Like literally there's a line where she asks, what about my life? Like, do I not have the right to live? Like, do I have to sacrifice myself to save all these people? And again, we're still in that ethical quandary, and I'm very curious to see what the answer to that question is. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with Omniscient Religious Viewpoint. I have 2 more things to talk about. I told Carson I promise I'd keep this brief, but I just consume so many things, it's kind of dangerous.
You're not able to keep it brief. It's not possible. You consume so much stuff. It's got to come pouring out one way or another.
Exactly. Because you want to know what I did over this weekend? There's this anime called it's called Mashle, Magic and Muscle. And it's currently 2 seasons. Each season is 12 episodes. I've watched 35 episodes. No, not 35, 25 or something. I've watched the entire first season and 8 episodes of the second season. Literally across Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
Should I have been watching Game of Thrones? Yes. Was I in the mood to watch Game of Thrones?
No.
I wanted to watch anime, and I watched anime.
Something that's gonna make you feel a lot of comfort before you watch a
well,
literal hell.
And so the reason why is because this is a comedy anime. So I have so many notes. I literally, I was telling Carson before, I have so many notes. Literally I have notes for every single episode, but I'm not going to go in episode by episode synopsis. That would take forever and be its own podcast.
Sure.
But essentially, to give you a synopsis of what I think about the show so far, since we're also going to get a season 3 and I'm not done with season 2 yet, I have mixed feelings. So essentially, this is kind of a combination of 2 different properties. It's a combination of Harry Potter, and when I say combination, I'll run you through some specifics. They literally copy, like, you've seen Harry Potter, obviously. So they have you not seen Harry Potter?
No, I've seen Harry Potter. That my face was
okay.
copying.
I don't know. Your face scared me. Like, so you know how one of the first things they do in class is the mandrake? You want to know what one of the first things they do in this? It's the mandrake. Oh, they have wands. There's an old guy that gives them wands. There's an alley where everyone can get all their stuff. There's 3 houses instead of 4, and they're called dorms. There's dorm points that they can get.
So what I'm hearing is this is Harry Potter and people probably should sue the property.
So you know when I said it's 2 properties? So it's Harry Potter mixed with another anime that I actually really love called One Punch Man. Very, very brief synopsis. Do you know what One Punch Man is? Do I need to give you a quick rundown of okay.
I know what One Punch Man is.
Okay, so I don't need to give... For anyone who doesn't know what One Punch Man is, go look it up. It's pretty self-explanatory. But essentially, it's a combination of those 2 properties. And the way that is done is, One Punch Man's a comedy, but also it's about a guy who's way too strong for his own good. Our main character's name is Mash, voiced by, I would say, my favorite voice actor of the modern... one of my favorite voice actors, Alex Lee. He voiced Sung Jin Woo in Solo Leveling. He also voiced... so many other characters. Carson knows this name. He doesn't watch anime, but he knows this name because I got the chance to meet Alex Lee and waited in an insanely long line at MegaCon. I have a picture of me with him and a signature.
I went to a panel on the opposite side of the convention center, and you were still in line an hour and a half later after I got back.
Yep. Do I regret it? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Alex Lee is he is so good. And so anyways, the main character's name is Mash, and he lives in a world with he has no magic. But to make up for that magic, and this is where the first word in this title comes, or one of the first words, is muscle. He literally is basically Saitama for One Punch Man. He is ungodly levels of strength. And where the comedy comes in is he is the most monotone person ever.
Sure.
He just kind of he's such a sweetheart, but he has never really interacted with a lot of people before because you have to hide the fact that you don't have magic. And one of the reasons why he can't go out is because the way that they know that you have magic is you literally have lines on your face that are created by the magic. Obviously, he doesn't have any of those lines because he doesn't have magic, so he can't really show his face all that much.
Sure.
And he's actually abandoned as a child because he doesn't have magic and is actually raised by a surrogate father, who is such a sweetheart, old guy, super, super nice. But the crux of this is essentially the magic police. And I'm going to pull up the character's name because he's voiced by someone you would know. Rad Coleman is the name of the character. He's voiced by the voice of Frankie from... Actually, you haven't gotten to this part of One Piece yet. There's a character named Frankie in One Piece that you'll meet later. He's voiced by the same guy. He's also the voice of Endeavor from My Hero Academia, which is another anime you haven't seen.
Yeah.
Super prolific voice actor. Recognized it literally. I was like, that's Frankie from One Piece. Again, you have not gotten there yet. You're actually really close. I guess really close. You're a few arcs off, not super, super far away.
Sure.
I think you have 2 arcs before you meet him. He's one of the best characters. You'll love him. I think might become one of your favorites, not to spoil. But yeah, anyways, back to Mashle.
Sure.
This Rad Coleman, the magic police guy, finds out that Mash doesn't have magic and essentially gives Mash an ultimatum. Either I kill you, because literally the punishment for not having magic in this world is execution. Like, you literally just die. Because the way that they've bred up to having magic and having super strong magic is natural selection, essentially. If you don't have magic, you die, so that only people with magic can reproduce in this world. And that's one of the interesting things, and I'll get into this a little more later. It's not just a comedy. There's also a lot of gravity to the situations that are going on. But anyway, Mash gets found out. He then gets placed with an ultimatum. The Magic Police Rad guy, he tells Mash, if you can become and I need to look back up the name of this because, again, I should have been all over the place, so I didn't have a chance to review my notes before this. Oh, I literally wrote this in here. The castle in this that they go to school in, because he goes to a magic school as well. It literally just is here. It's just Hogwarts. It literally is just Hogwarts. The castle it's just Hogwarts. How do you when you talk about suing, like, yeah. But there is, I'm trying to find the name of it. Why am I forgetting it? Essentially, there is a test at this magic school. The whole point of it is to take this test to become one of the most powerful wizards in the world.
Sure.
And Mash is challenged with passing that without magic. Otherwise, he dies. Now, the reason the police officer Rad is doing this is because having that position comes with a lot of fame and money and things like that. And Rad wants to mooch off of that from Mash. He wants to be like, oh, well, like, I helped Mash, and like, oh, he owes me and things like that. So it's a very selfish reason.
Right.
But to kind of breeze through all of these episodes, even though I would love to do an in-depth, like, look into each of these episodes. One day essentially, yeah, one day, maybe when you watch it, one day, maybe, if you do. But essentially, Mash goes to this magic school. He makes a bunch of friends. He makes a bunch of enemies. His main stick, and this is again where one of the comedy aspects is he loves cream puffs. It's a really weird, but kind of it's one of those stupid funny things. Like, it's overused to the point in which you just can't help but laugh at how stupid it is.
It's the anime awkward humor, which I've actually grown accustomed
exactly.
to. I've started to kind of like, especially with like Sanji and whatnot. So I get that. I completely get that.
Oh yeah. But anyways, he goes through the entrance because the entrance exam is also really difficult to get in here. It's only a 3% pass rate. Mash passes it with ease because, again, he's the main character and he's also just insanely strong. Now, he has his own creative ways of doing so. One of the main things of this entrance exam is they're placed into this maze and they have to get out with spells. You know what Mash does? He just punches holes through the maze. Like, you know those walls that are a meter thick that are made out of, like, solid, like, dirt and rock? Yeah, fuck that. I'm just gonna punch through it. Screw it. But that's where a lot of the story kind of, the crux comes to it. And this is kind of where I'll not end this off, but kind of talk through this, is a lot of the main villains of this story. A lot of it is that idea of, it's classism. It's the sense of, I was born with magic. Again, you have lines, and most people are single liners, but then you have double liners who are like really powerful, and then you have triple liners, which are even more powerful. And everyone who has magic, and especially people with multiple lines, have insanely big egos in the sense of, oh, well, I am one of them literally says, like, I am God's gift to this earth. Like, I am what God wanted, because everyone believes that, like, God gave the world magic. Like, that was God's gift to the earth was magic, and if you don't have magic, that means God hates you, so then you should die. Again, that's kind of where the idea comes from. But that idea of classism is very interesting because Mash, it's definitely a story about Mash, but there's also a huge ensemble cast. You have Lemon, Lemon's the female. Lemon's in love with Mash, because Mash saves Lemon in the entrance exam. It's very awkward, but very funny because she believes that they're engaged. They're obviously not. Okay, here's the thing. Again, it's kind of that standard anime weirdness.
Sure.
But it's kind of that, like, again, when it gets used in the way that it is, I can't help but laugh. Like, is it stupid? Is it cringy? Absolutely. But I just love to laugh. The reason I watch this, especially instead of Game of Thrones, is because, like, Game of Thrones is so heavy. I have not laughed, like, once at Game of Thrones because, like, especially this recent episode, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
but there's no laughing going on.
Sure.
So yeah, I wanted to watch something funny, and yeah, basically, so you have Lemon. You also have Lance. Lance is he starts off as a bully. Mash breaks. That's the other thing, is like Mash's whole idea is like, I'm gonna bring you around. Well, I guess technically it's an unintentional thing because Mash is just so nice he can't have enemies. So like someone like bullies him and tries to like hurt him, and then he's just like, oh, let's be friends afterward. Like, you're not that bad of a guy, because everyone has to have a tragic backstory. Everyone's been beaten by their parents. Everyone has major, like, it's kind of like the whole One Piece thing of it. Every main character in One Piece has the most tragic backstory you'll ever hear in your life.
Right.
As you've already seen, and as
the friggin' whale has a
Laboon.
Laboon has a backstory. Everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Depressing, but I get what you're saying.
But yeah, so. But he kind of like he brings them around, and again, I would love to talk more in depth about this, but for the interest of time, I'll kind of like synopsize my feelings about the whole show. The animation quality is not all over the place. It's very interesting because it's kind of flat in an interesting, like, not in a bad way, but it kind of gives an interesting contrast. There's a fight that's right at the beginning of season 2 where you're kind of getting to the more powerful characters of the universe. Sure. And the animation quality, I feel like, takes like, sorry, my cat keeps jumping on things. But it's a fight between someone who uses music magic and someone who uses sword magic. And the animation quality, I feel like, just took an insane jump where I'm sitting there like, I didn't even take notes other than like, this is fucking sick. Because I was just standing there like, ooh, everything else is kind of like flat in a way, and I feel like it's kind of the same with the humor. When the humor hits, I feel like for me it hits, but a lot of the times, again, it can feel a little overused. I feel like the influences from Harry Potter are nice. Like, literally, I feel like every single episode, there's something that they stole from Harry Potter. They have a game that is Quidditch. It's literally just a modified version of Quidditch. You fly on broomsticks in a stadium. You throw a ball through hoops that, like, rings. There's no golden snitch, but that's, like... And there's only one ball, but, like, it's their version of Quidditch. Another thing I didn't talk about, I kind of did, is the way that you progress to even be able to take the final exam is you have to collect these coins, but these coins are essentially just the replacement for house points, in the sense of you do something really good or impressive, you get a coin or a fraction of a coin. And I don't have a problem with things taking influence. Like, if this was just a magical world, but the fact that your castle just is Hogwarts, the fact that you have a broom game that literally just feels like Quidditch, the fact that you have, like, the wands the way that they are, where the wand kind of chooses you, like, I feel like the influences are a little too heavy. I feel like we are getting... Yeah, like, the main villain is definitely one that's, I wouldn't say a Voldemort copy. He has a little bit more nuance and interest to him. We're kind of getting finally into his story. But it's not really subtle, and it can't be subtle because it feels like a copy paste. And I'm not complaining about that. I don't want this to be me complaining about it. I do just want to be upfront with it, in the sense of, if you're going to watch this, like, expect that you're just getting a comedy Harry Potter One Punch Man. Like, that is all this is. It does try to be deep, and it does succeed in that in certain ways, in the sense of, like, again, the story of classism, the story of being belittled and bullied and things like that. And a lot of that stuff is pulled off really tastefully. but it really can't outlive what it's trying to be in the sense of that One Punch Man or whatever.
Sure.
And I don't think it's better than either of those. I would put this like where I'm at right now. Like I know we don't rate things, but I'd give it like a probably 7.5 out of 10. In the sense of like I'm enjoying it and I'm going to watch it until it ever finishes with either season 3, wherever it ends, because I do enjoy it. It gives me a good laugh and it's a really good feel good show, especially like after an episode of Game of Thrones, like put it on and just laugh. But I don't know. I'll talk about one last.
No,
you can say what you were saying. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say like because it does sound a lot like it's. I'm not the word is very bad if I say mid. That's not a good word to use, but like the way you're
it's definitely above mid, but you're not entirely wrong in the sense of like it's standard. I will say this. It doesn't and this is kind of what I was this is kind of what I was getting at in the sense of it doesn't do anything new, but it does do things that have been done before well. That's like the easiest way to describe it. Is it going to blow your socks off? Absolutely not. Maybe it does later on, and I'm not there yet. Because I also haven't read the manga, but maybe it does get there. But for where I'm at right now, I'm enjoying my time with it, and I will continue to watch it. It's never gonna reach like at least where it stands right now. My top 20 favorite anime list probably. Just because again, it's kind of one of those just standard shows that's fun to watch. But yeah, the last thing I have to talk about before we get to you and then back to me for Game of Thrones is today was the Switch 2 Direct. I have so many thoughts that I could say about this. I wish we weren't talking about Andor this week because I really just wanted the topic to be this. But because Andor season 2 is coming out and because we have the podcast scheduled out, I think for a month and a half, honestly. Probably more because I don't know if you've realized this. Right after like last episode and all that, you get into Superman and things like that, and obviously we're gonna talk about we're nonstop, like coming up. We're eating good.
Until after the summer,
talk about everything. Yeah,
until after the summer when we
exactly
realize,
until after summer ends. Yeah, until after summer ends, we're not gonna be able to go back and watch old things and make them the main topic because we're just like it's insane. But anyways, with the Switch 2 Direct, it was probably the best showcase that they could have given for the console. Carson hasn't watched it yet. So he's not going to be able to offer that much input. I will talk about 2 things or 3. I'll talk about 3 things. 1, it was really funny. Because have you heard of the game Hollow Knight?
Yeah.
Do you know the story of Hollow Knight's Silk Song?
I don't know the story of it, but I know what Hollow Knight is.
So Hollow Knight is it's one of those popular roguelikes of all time. It is insanely popular. It's an indie game. It like revolutionized the genre. It's really, really big.
Okay.
I think it was back in 2017, like many, many years ago, like right after Hollow Knight peaked in its success, they announced Hollow Knight Silk Song, which is supposed to be the sequel. That's following a different character. This game has been talked about and delayed, I would say, for like 8 years now. And you want to know how we get information about it? In a 3-second clip during this direct, confirming that the game was coming this year. Now, granted, we're definitely going to be getting more information come Summer Game Fest.
Sure.
Which I will tell you, probably during Summer Game Fest season, we'll be talking about video games a lot more. Because I know that's one of the things we don't talk about a lot, but Summer Game Fest is going to be huge. We might have to carve in an episode, like slot in an episode just for Summer Game Fest to talk about that.
It's going to be insane. We're going to have to figure out how to work around that.
But yeah, when that happened, I kind of freaked out because literally I'm just sitting there like watching it on my phone. And then all of a sudden it's just like, Silk Song 2025. What? And then they moved on and I was like, wait, go back to that. What do you
mean? Don't skip past that. What do you mean?
Yeah, I think I have like 40 hours in Hollow Knight or something like that. I've never beaten it, but I do enjoy the game. I have a lot of fun with it. So like I'm excited to see. I need to get back around to beating Silk Song, but that I wanted to bring that up briefly just because it was so funny to me in the sense of like this game that everyone's been talking about forever and people just stopped believing that it was real. It's just like 3 seconds. They're like, here you go, coming out this year, moving on. The next thing I wanted to talk about is I was going to end with this, but I'll just bring it up now because I feel like I might just make this 2 items. The price of things. So I don't know if you've seen any information. So if you don't remember, the original Switch dropped for $300 or $299.99. Yeah. The Switch 2 is dropping for $449.09. It's $450. So you're seeing a $150 increase in price.
Doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't surprise me because you are getting, so when it's in docked mode, it goes up to 4K 60 frames per second. In handheld mode, it goes up to 120 frames per second in 1080p. So it's definitely a very beefy handheld device. It's probably going to be one of, if not the most powerful handhelds that we have. Because you have like the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally and things like that. Sure, I think this will be more powerful than those. I think what we know about it, it already is. Yeah. Now, granted, the Steam Deck's a few years old by now, and we're probably going to get a new one that's going to be more powerful than this. But still, at the current moment, it is going to be the strongest handheld. Sure. The price is definitely a little questionable. The thing that becomes a real problem, so they announced some really cool games. Elden Ring is coming to the Switch. From Software, the makers of Elden Ring. Yeah, From Software, the makers of Elden Ring are making a Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive game. So the people who made Elden Ring From Software are making a new game exclusively for the Switch 2.
Yeah, well, in all honesty, that's probably needed because Nintendo Switch players were left out on Elden Ring for a long time.
Yeah, but they're getting Elden Ring on Switch 2. They were getting a new Mario Kart, an open world Mario Kart. You literally you can just drive around the world. Looks phenomenal. Looks like it's gonna be a lot of fun. We're getting like every third-party game you could imagine. This is going to be a very packed console. You're never going to not have games to play on this. However, Mario Kart 8, or it's Mario Kart World is the way that it's called. Mario Kart World is the name of it. The digital version of this game is going to be $80. The physical version of the physical version of this game is going to be the physical version of this game is going to be $90. You're paying nearly $100 for this game. Now, granted, game prices have been getting more expensive. Games are more expensive to make. Obviously, with things that are going on with tariffs and the way the general economy is going, it's not shocking. But I'm going to be honest, up until the point, because they did not talk about the pricing of either the console or the games until after the direct and press releases. Sure. And now I know why. Because this is bad news. Because after watching that direct, I have a Switch. It's behind my TV behind me. I don't play it all that often, but it's mainly just because of the games that I like to play. The Switch isn't powerful enough for it. I got it to play games with my family, which is good at doing, like Mario Kart and things like that. They love playing on the Switch whenever I'm home. And playing in college and things like that. So when the Switch 2 got announced and all these like games were coming out, I was super excited. When they announced that it was coming June 5th, I was like, I might pre-order this. Like I might actually like get the new Switch. When the price was announced, I was like, okay, that's a little bit much, but I can stomach the price. When the game prices were announced, I don't know if I'm going to get a Switch anymore. I'm going to be honest with you. because like legitimately, if every game that I want to play, because from the way it seems, not every game is going to be $80 on the Switch. They've already confirmed that, actually. Not every, like, they announced a new Donkey Kong game. That Donkey Kong game is going to be $70, which is more along the standard prices. Now, granted, that's only a $10 difference, but $10 adds up over time with the more games you buy. Yeah. And if these big games that are like the pinnacle games are all going to be $80, that's an insane amount of money to sink in when I could just go out and buy a Steam Deck for a little bit more and play my entire already existent Steam library in handheld mode.
I've decided that I've like anytime a friend recommends me a game, unless it's like something I can play on my own and I'm not just like playing like multiplayer, I've given up on buying it. Like a good example is Grand Theft Auto 5 is coming, or Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming out later this year. I will be buying that. I don't care if it's $150 or $200. I will be buying that, and I will be playing it.
Yeah.
Logan, or the Wolverine game, is coming out, I think, later this year or next year. I'm getting that because I really want to play that.
Yeah.
But I feel like there are so many games that I own in my gaming library on Xbox and PlayStation combined that I've bought that they never get played anymore because I buy them, I play maybe 2 seconds of them, I have a really fun time with it, but then for whatever reason, the person I bought it for or bought it with just doesn't want to play it, like, straight up. And so I'm like, well, what the frick do I do? What did I spend this for? What do I do? Warhammer. I bought that game, the new one. Phenomenal.
The Space Marine, Warhammer Space Marine 2.
Space Marine. It's so good. And I bought it on sale technically, so it wasn't as much money, but I got it for like $50 instead of $70, which is good. That being said, I have played the game 4 times, and I bought it 5 months ago. So it's an ongoing thing of I want to be able to buy games. Unless it's something I'm very passionate about or something I really want to play, I'm probably just not going to buy it again. Talk to me when it's free or it's on some sort of subscription service that I can pay for it. And it sounds like, and it wasn't a surprise to me when you said the prices for things on the Switch were going to be bad. It doesn't surprise me. And I do believe that I wouldn't purchase it. Personally, unless you are a Switch enthusiast, it's all you play, I would not purchase it. And that's just based on how it's sounding.
While it is powerful, for me, the only reason I would buy a Switch over a Steam Deck is to play things like the new Mario Kart, which is really cool looking, and I definitely would play. But I also don't play Mario Kart by myself. I only play Mario Kart with friends, and I already have a Switch that can play the base Mario Kart with friends.
Right. What point is it?
Exactly. And that's why, like, as I think about it more, I don't think I'm going to use. If the Switch games were cheaper, I would be more considering of getting a Switch. But at the current price markets for both of them, because I have a very similar issue to you, I have nearly 2,000 games that I own. Across all of my PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, Steam, Epic, all this. Now, granted, a lot of those are free games. From like the Epic Store, Prime Gaming, or things like that. But like I have paid a lot of money for games that I have not put a ton of hours into. And now granted, and I haven't told you this yet, I'm going to start live streaming gaming 3 days a week. I'm going to start streaming Monday, Thursday, Friday, starting next week. Not starting this week because this week is a really insane week for me. I'm going to AwesomeCon this weekend, which is actually why we're recording this early. So I'm not starting this week, I'm starting next week, but I'm going to use that as an opportunity to kind of play through a lot of my game library, kind of it as an excuse to kind of do something fun, talk to people while playing games. But yeah, I have a very similar problem in the sense of I own so many games that I've just never touched. And as you've heard through the podcast, I watch a lot of TV. I read a lot of like webtoons, manga, things like that, and fitting gaming into that, other than a few sessions of like Balatro, which I have put like 100 hours into, it's really difficult to find the time. So I'm carving out that time with live streaming, but that's only going to do so much for live streaming 2-3 hours a week and playing like different games. So yeah, I think that's my kind of what I wanted to talk about. Again, there's a lot of really cool games. I highly encourage you watch the direct because it is really hype. There's a lot of really cool things that they have, and if it wasn't for the price, and I think part of it is Nintendo's fault. I do think part of it is them being greedy to an extent, like kind of taking advantage of the current situation, but at the same time, it's also not entirely their fault. With, again, the way the world, it's not just the United States economy, it's the world economy is going because of what the United States is doing. Everyone's kind of in a difficult position right now. It's just, it affects all consumers in a really unfortunate way that we're yet to see the effects of fully. But enough about the dreary realms of world. That's all I have been consuming this week. Carson, have you consumed anything but One Piece or Andor that you want to talk about, or do you just want to jump right into those two?
Daredevil.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's right.
Fortunately,
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if you had watched the new Daredevil, to be honest, because you had binged Andor. But go take it away.
No. I would have dropped Andor to watch that in a heartbeat. Yeah. So we had another great episode of Daredevil. I actually would go as far as to say it was very well done. It was entertaining. It leaves a lot of questions for me though. And I'm seeing the trajectory that this season's going on. We talked about this a bit last week and a little bit about it the week before about how you can clearly tell the difference between the two shows that they have created and kind of combined together. It's not bad. It's not Brave New World messy. It's just very evidently so that it was two different shows put together. And this episode, this episode had some integral plot twist moments that I did not expect to happen. Let's start by talking about this. The character of Muse. Do you know who Muse is in the comics? Have you heard of this character at all?
Yeah. I will admit I don't know like everything about them, but like you say the name, I'm familiar with them. Yeah.
So Muse is the insane, deranged serial killer in the Daredevil universe. And for what we get of the character, really good. And the actor who plays him, I didn't get his name, does a absolutely incredible job portraying the character. That being said, this character dies in this episode, and we are 2 episodes away from finishing the series. And my biggest problem with
season,
finishing
this
the season
is confirmed for a season 2.
Yeah, confirmed for season 2. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I knew what you meant. I just wanted to make sure it was clear. Yeah.
We are 2 episodes away from finishing the season, and we have now killed off who, in my eye, was supposed to be the big bad of this season. And it is now the most underwhelming thing ever, because I feel like they are just aimlessly chugging along now. First off, we barely really saw Muse. Here's the I stand by my statement of I still think this season is better than season 2, whether it's by much or whether it's a long gap in between saying that. It's yet to be seen because the show hasn't finished yet.
Yeah,
but I still think it's better than season 2 as of right now. They are kind of just aimlessly wandering now. I don't know where this plot's going beyond. Okay, I know where the conflict is heading. I know that Kingpin is basically saying now that he knows that Daredevil's back, and Matt is taking up the suit after their lovely talk in the diner saying, hey, don't pick up that suit again. I will get involved if you do. And Matt completely disobeys. He puts the suit on again and he does vigilanteing. Kingpin is now hellbent of banning all vigilantes, which poses the good question of what does that really mean for the future of the MCU? Does that mean every vigilante in New York City, like Spider-Man, Kamala Khan, these people who wear a mask and fight crime, does that mean Kingpin will go after all of them?
That's the other thing is, and I don't know if the story covers any of this, but where do you make that distinction between superhero and vigilante?
Sure.
Because I definitely see Daredevil as a vigilante, but
sure.
I guess you bring up Spider-Man. In some people's eyes, and definitely Kingpin's eyes, he would be viewed as a vigilante. To others, he would be more viewed as a superhero because he's saving the world as opposed to just the street level things. But that is kind of, I guess, an interesting question in the sense of where do you draw that line? And again, I don't know if they explore that at all, but
I think that it's the idea of just vigilante in general, people who hide behind the mask. Kingpin doesn't necessarily, I don't think he cares at all, really. But I think the thing he's trying to say within the show is, okay, Captain America, we know is Steve Rogers. At least we know who he is. We know who he is behind the mask. You know, it's easier to find them once you know who they are. Kingpin's trying to get rid of the whole, you hide behind the mask, you cower behind the mask, you fight crime without us knowing who you are, and you are just this vigilante, this person. And I think he knows that he wants to get rid of that because he knows how big of a threat vigilantes are, as very evidently proven with Matt Murdock as Daredevil, who has now twice foiled Kingpin's plans. And so it's the idea of, I'm getting rid of this so that this doesn't bother me again. And so I see the rabbit hole they're going down. But they set up Muse to be a lot more of an important character and a lot more of an important player. And now he's just gone and he's done. I have no idea where this season's going. I know where it's probably going to end up with Kingpin trying to do that. And for Kingpin's story, I know exactly where it's going. For Matt Murdock and for like his big antagonist, like, okay, born again, he's Daredevil again. So what, is it just Batman and Robin now? Villain of the week? He's going to go find somebody to beat up each week, each episode? Like,
yeah,
that wasn't what the original show was. And I'm not saying it has to be exactly like the original show, but you should at least try to do a story that is connected and weave through the entire way.
Yeah. Villain of the week doesn't really work. Like
not for Daredevil. Not for Daredevil. It doesn't.
Yeah.
And like my thing is like, you can have a quote unquote villain of the week. I'm fine with it, but it can't be this constant. You know, like in the original show, I guess you could classify the villain of the week in some episodes was Stick, his mentor who taught him how to fight and power through his blindness, to channel with the inner echolocation that Matt eventually develops. And that was fine. But honestly, my least favorite episodes of the original Daredevil season are the ones with Stick in them. And that's because it really doesn't feel like there's a connected story to it. And that's kind of what it feels like here is I don't see the connectiveness. Where is this going? I don't want to be aimlessly wandering forever, because then
you lost your through line
finale. And again, I think once we get to season 2, it will fully, now that they've like, okay, this is the story we're going to tell. We're not, going back and forth in between different types of shows to show here. We're starting here. We're ending here. I think they have to get through the weeds in order to get there. And unfortunately, the season's going to take a hit because of that. And I think that's very evidently clear. But I can't say anything more than the fact of I don't know where the show is going. And I'm not saying that in like a good way. I don't know where it's going. And the title character of the show, I really don't know where he's going. And it doesn't sit right with me. I wish they would have actually taken charge in connecting the story more. Because here's what I will say. At least Brave New World, with all its messiness, had a complete character arc. It had a start to finish. You saw the development of the characters. And you knew where it was going, even though sometimes that was at its detriment in the movie. Here, it really does feel like the roadmap is getting messed up. So I think that's where this show is going to have its biggest fault in the end. Overall, this episode, still really good. The writing is phenomenal. The scenes with Muse in them, which I think is technically only 2, really good. My God, he is threatening. He is scary. He's actually putting up a really good fight against Matt. Who again, Matt with all his ninja-like abilities. I mean, this guy's just a serial killer. He should not be able to fight the way he's fighting, but he is, and he's holding his own against Matt Murdock, and it makes him such an intimidating villain. I really do like Kingpin's character in this episode. I thought Vincent D'Onofrio did a great job. I thought that the writing for Kingpin this episode was really good. His whole episode character arc this episode is, I don't want to believe that Daredevil's back. For the love of God, I don't want to believe that Daredevil's back. Please
denial.
And then at the end, he's just like, no, fuck, he's back. And he kind of has to come to the conclusion of, oh, okay, well, let's get rid of vigilantes, shall we? And the other thing that like is really interesting about Kingpin's character is, and this is something that's been happening the whole season, I haven't really talked about yet because I wasn't bored by it, but there wasn't really anything that has happened that makes me feel like it's worth talking. But obviously Vanessa is in this show as well. They brought her back. She was one of the rewrites that they added in. It's a lot more seamless. But the whole point of, while Kingpin was away during Echo, he stepped away after he got his eye shot in Hawkeye. And then the whole Echo series was him coming to terms and trying to reconnect with Echo, who he sees as this daughter-like figure. And he stepped away from Vanessa. And apparently while he was gone, Vanessa took to another lover named Adam. And Kingpin in the first episode comes up to her and is like, hey, by the way, I know about Adam. And you think, okay, that's it. He knows he's not going to pull the trigger. He's fine. And then you get to episode 4. And of course, Adam's locked away in a cage. He's been there the whole time. Kingpin's had him in a cage this whole time.
Nothing's ever okay with Kingpin. He never can take something lightly. Like, I feel like, again, I haven't seen all of Daredevil, but like just his character arc in Echo, like he can't take anything lightly. Like someone does it, like a little tiny little discrepancy against anyone that he cares, like anything. No, he takes it to the extreme. You are fucked.
The thing is, I love describing Kingpin this way. He's like the biggest man-child ever, but also at the same time, he's a very intellectual man-child. I was gonna say, you take his toys, and he doesn't like to share, and he throws a fit about it. He
is insanely intelligent, well-calculated, connected, while also just being so immature about it. Like again, like you said, someone takes his toy and he throws a tantrum. Like,
yeah. But the biggest plot twist of this episode, and this was something that Vanessa dealt with, was she pretty much has deducted that Kingpin has taken Adam, and that he's either killed Adam or he is like tucked away somewhere, and she's never going to see him again. And she kind of blames him for it. And she sends this other guy to go kill dear old Wilson Fisk. And the final shot of this episode is Wilson Fisk about to get his head blown off Godfather style in a restaurant surrounded by Italian food. And you see the gun come out, points right at Kingpin, pew, bop, in James Bond fashion, just silencer, assassin-like kills. Kingpin doesn't even like flinch. Like he knows this is probably going to happen. And he just sits there cutting his little, his sausage, and he goes, "Thank you, Buck. Could you please tell Vanessa, could you ask her if she wants some souffle on the way home? Thank you." And he's not even fazed by it.
It's very Kingpin.
Well, and the thing that I really love about Kingpin's character is, even though Vanessa is willing to go as far as to hurt Wilson Fisk and to shoot him, which because she knows he survived a gunshot wound to the eye, there's probably some part of her that knows he's going to survive a gunshot wound to the back of the head, but she wants him to feel pain. And I think Wilson Fisk, in a very terrifying way, because when, again, didn't flinch, and that's all he did is, I'm going to rope her back in. I'm going to keep her right where I want her. And that's the terrifying part of this, is he went from somebody who, because he does love Vanessa and he just wants Vanessa. That being said, he wants the Vanessa that he creates, not the woman that she's now becoming, who is this woman who during Echo took over Fisk's under like seedy underbelly control the crime and whatnot. He wants Vanessa exactly the way she was when they first met, and he's trying to control her, and it's so eerie, but it's so well done. And I will say this, Wilson Fisk is the one thing in this show that you can't tell where the rewrites are. You can't tell where the show was what at one point and this was what it became. He is the one constant, and that's really, really nice. The biggest parts are the Daredevil scenes, which is really unfortunate because, again, he is the title character. This isn't the Kingpin show, which unfortunately I would love that. That'd be great.
Maybe similar Punisher style. Maybe we'll get maybe not a whole season or anything, but like a special dedicated to Kingpin. I mean, probably not, just because he's such a titular character, and so, like, again, you have him in Echo, you have him in the original Daredevil, you have him in this Daredevil. Like,
we would never get that, and that's purely because he, even though he's not in the title, he is the co-lead of Daredevil, and the show presents it as so. He is the co-lead. They're not going to give him his own spin-off movie or show and then just dedicate that completely to him, because this is his show. Even though he's not the title character, literally not the title character, this is also his show. This is his. But yeah, writing standpoint, any scene that Matt and Heather Graham had was really good. It was really well done. They have a great scene in the beginning where she basically tells Matt, like, you're holding back about your guilt and you're not coming to terms with something. What are you hiding? And it's Matt's like inner struggle of, I'm doing daredeviling again, and this is exactly what got Foggy killed. This is exactly what started the whole thing off. It's what ended my once great career with my 2 friends, and now I'm here, and I'm like, and at the end of this episode, we see the last one of the last things we see Matt is because Muse goes after Heather Graham. We see Matt hold Heather and basically tell her, like, hey, stay with me, stay with me, stay with me. And thankfully she survives. But it's also this moment of, Matt, you just picked up Daredeviling again, and you've already caused somebody to get hurt because of the fact that you're Daredevil.
Yeah.
And it's really good writing. And that's the one thing I do love about it. The shots, oh my god, the fight scene was brutal. Oh my god. I want to talk about that for a second. There's a literal part where Daredevil takes his billy clubs and just throws it through the collarbone of Muse and pulls him back to the ground. It is brutal. Yeah. I've never seen that happen, but I'm like, God, that's great. It's so cool. This episode was very good. I don't have many problems with this episode itself. It's much more the overarching thing, which is we're just aimlessly wandering, and until they get a focus, which again, next episode we could have a focus, and it could have I could be wrong about this. We totally have had a reason for, having all these things, but I'm willing to stake money on the fact that that's not the case. And that unfortunately this show is just, it's getting bogged down by the fact of, this is what they originally created. This is what they wanted to create. They combined the both, and it's just a little messy in between. So I'm willing to deal with that. If they mess up season 2 the same way they messed up this season, then I'm not going to have so much grace, because then you had literal time to fix this. And not only that, you had a clear roadmap for this season, which you may not have had for season 1. But that's it. I mean, it's been 3 days since we last recorded, so that's pretty much the only thing other than Andor that I was.
I mean, that's fair. Not all of us can watch a season and a half anime, read a manhwa, and watch Game of Thrones. I am very special in that way.
Speaking of Game of Thrones, oh my god, I'll give you the option, because this is going to be a wild discussion. Would you like me to start talking about my lighthearted One Piece episodes, or would you like to start with the dark, brutal, and grim Game of Thrones episode?
as the host, and since I rambled a lot in the beginning of this episode, talk about One Piece. Tell me where you're at. Pick up my mood before we want to kill ourselves.
Let me get into this note. So obviously this is the Laboon arc. Oh my god, dude, they gave a friggin' backstory to a whale. Why is this show so deep for the most?
Oda is such a genius. He's such a genius, though.
Oh my god,
it's like, why does a whale have such a good backstory? Because why the fuck not?
Why not? Well, and so this was the start of my notes. I figured you'd get a chuckle out of it. The first thing is they run into Laboon. They don't know it's Laboon. They don't know it's a whale. They just see this massive object in the way as they're coming down. And I wrote down immediately, Luffy is the smartest character for using the cannon to steer the ship away from colliding rocks and Laboon. And my second note was, Luffy is the dumbest character for punching Laboon. I actually sat there and went, it's very in character, but my god, he went from being the smartest character to being the dumbest. Why would you punch the whale?
Early anime Luffy is one of the funniest, just stupid things that you'll ever watch. Like, it's just like, I see a lot of clips come up. Like, obviously I've seen One Piece, so I know where the story goes, but I love seeing all the clips reminding me of just how silly the beginning of One Piece was, in just the stupid shenanigans that he punched a whale that he thought was a rock.
I'm like, dude, why would you punch the whale? What is the matter with you? Well, it's also like the other group notices this is a whale. Luffy clearly has to notice it's a whale, yet he punches him anyway. Like, what the heck? I do want to start off by talking about the best part of this arc, which is, it genuinely is Laboon's backstory. It is tragic. Like, this crew that he was taken in by, and that basically raised him from, is there like a term for a young whale? Like a cow, it's a calf.
Probably. I don't know it. I don't think it's said in the show at all. So
let's just call it a whale, a baby whale.
Yeah.
You know, we get to see this big thing about how, you know, he's basically kind of taken in by this group. You know, he was kind of like in this really dire state, and this group was like, yeah, you know, you can come be with us. And then at the end, they're like, okay, we're leaving. We'll come back for you, buddy. And then they don't come back for him. Like, why? What did Laboon do? And they're like, stay here, stay guard. What, you know, White, watch for us. And they never come back. And I'm like, my God, those people are dead. They're not coming back. They either died or they're straight up not coming back. I'm like, that's so sad. It's a friggin' whale, dude. Like, that's what I love about this show, is they find a way to really give backstories to things that shouldn't matter. And I don't know, maybe that's because of the way the story was written in the actual manga, or maybe it's just because of how many episodes there are, and they're actually able to give arcs to things that would seem needless in a show like Daredevil, or these smaller scale shows that adapt other comic like stories. I just think it's really cool that we get to even have those stories, and the fact that they are as good as they are. I mean, it's insane.
Well, that's one of the things that it is. I think Laboon, and I'm so glad that we're talking about just this arc, and we're not like, because I feel like Laboon is like it's Reverse Mountain is the specific arc that you're on. Reverse Mountain is such a nothing arc in the grand scheme of things. It's very quick. There's not a ton that happens, but I feel like it kind of encapsulates one of the reasons why I love One Piece so much is again, One Piece is really long because, unfortunately, especially in later episodes, there's a lot of like drawn out scenes. You've already kind of noticed it a little bit. It gets way worse later on. However, I'll give you, so you bring up the original manga. The original manga is over 1,000 chapters long. The original manga is still it's ongoing, super long. And one of the reasons why it is because of things like the story of Laboon. Sure. And again, a character that ultimately isn't even a character. It's a whale that should not matter. Why would you give a whale a name and make you cry over his backstory? That's one of the things that One Piece isn't just a story about Luffy becoming king of the pirates. It's the story of the world of One Piece and the people who live in One Piece and the characters and the creatures that live in One Piece. You're in a living, breathing world that you really feel, you can't help but feel a deep connection with when, again, you come across a random whale and a random old guy sitting on an island watching this whale. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but like, I'll say this one thing. Oda doesn't leave anything. There's still a lot of questions left, but there might be questions that get answered later on. I'll say that.
Well, and honestly, going back to the story itself in the long run, it might be needless. It might be and that's okay. Something I actually appreciate about it is this is a show about pirates at the end of the day. It's about adventure and it's about the companionship. And as much as I'm going to get frustrated, I love this now and I'm going to get frustrated with it later. I promise you. These stories matter to a pirate centric adventure story because it's not just, okay, we have the treasure map. Let's go to this spot. We found it. Let's go to this spot. Oh, skeletons. All right, great. We found it. Let's keep going. It is solely about, making these memories. It's really corny. And I hate that they changed the theme song after a while. But literally, the words "compass left behind, it'll only slow us down." The legendary place that the end of the map reveals. What's the lyrics I was thinking of? There's always room for you if you want to be my friend. That one specifically. The whole point is that yes, they're a crew, they're pirates, but they are friends, and they are this ragtag group of friends. And I think that it's really special to see these smaller character moments so that when we get to the bigger impactful things later on, which I think now we've reached the point of, okay, all the backstories for the right now main characters, we'll get more later, I'm sure, but the main characters, all their backstories are done and the emotional weight resonated within those backstories. Now we're at a point where, okay, they're all together. We have to be able to build to those big moments, and they are doing it excellently with storylines like these. The biggest complaint that I had with this arc was I wish they were all together. I think except Luffy, they were all together almost the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish I would have seen more of a group collab to solve problems and not just individual characters solving the problems. Like in one moment, it's like, okay, these 4 characters are stupid, and this one knows exactly what to do, and they do it. All right, now everybody else is stupid, and this character is like smart, and they're figuring out. I wish we would get more of a group collab with how they solve problems.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll get that way later on. Maybe this is like another like building over time. They're figuring out how to work as a crew. They just came together as a crew, so let's figure this out. But that's like my biggest complaint, especially with where we're at in the show now. I wish we would have more of a collective. Great, the group knows exactly what to do, and they're working together to solve these goals, and it's not just one person solving it while the rest stand idly by. The only character I will give a pass for that is Usopp, because he ain't gonna work with the group at all, and he is a wimp, and I love that character so much, but my god. I also want to talk about Sanji's character, because he has had some moments in this show with the most awkward cringe humor ever, but I friggin' love it. And it's only ever when his heart eyes light up when there's a beautiful girl around and he's frantically waving his arms. Nami, 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 notice me, Nami. I'm like, God, Sanji, shut up. This isn't gonna work. Like, just shut up.
Yep.
It's really funny. But I appreciate that humor. But no, I mean, I wish I could say more about this arc other than just like, than that. But like, truthfully, it was a good arc, and it's necessary for character building. But at the end of the day, this is an arc. Objectively, if you're looking at it, unless something comes up later, it is technically a needless arc, and I can understand why it would turn people off of One Piece, especially if there's a constant amount of arcs like these. Not me, because I don't care, and I like the small character moments, but I completely understand why it would turn somebody else off.
So I have so many things that I could say, and it's really hard for me to hold it back because it's major spoilers. And obviously, as someone who's caught up to One Piece, now with the new English release, I am 100% caught up to the released episodes of One Piece. Every single episode. So I could say so many things. I'll say 2 things. Not really spoiler, but semi-spoiler. The first thing, you're kind of at one of the first turning points in the series. In the sense of what is to follow after this arc specifically. You're gonna get into some interesting, I don't want to say changes, but you're gonna see a different side of One Piece that's going to start after this arc. Because you brought up a really good point. The main crew, the original crew, are all together now. Their backstories have been told, they're all together. Now, what do you do with that? Where do you go from there? And this arc was kind of that tipping off point where now they've crossed the Grand Line and they're going into the next sea. That's the first major turning point that is going to be, dude, there's some arcs coming up that are like right around the corner. I cannot wait to talk. I am so excited to talk about. But the other thing I'll say, and this is a spoil, like, this is a spoiler, but it's not. It's more of just a comment that I'm going to make is nothing is ever as unimportant as you think it is. Never write off an arc, never write off a character, never write off a moment, because let me tell you, if Oda is the master and the GOAT at anything, it is 1,000 episodes from now, you're going to be like, oh my fucking God, this thing that I thought didn't matter is now the biggest thing that has ever happened in the entire series. Whether that be, when I tell you, there are single fractions of a scene that later on mean more than you will ever imagine. And and again, it's a spoiler, but it's not, because I'm not going to tell you what any of that is. I'm just going to give you this comment now, in this warning now, of do not write anything off. Do not like, I get it. It's hard to see it in the moment because you're so early on in the show, and I cannot blame you for feeling that way.
It's because I will just say, you do.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I can't blame you. You don't know where you're going, and that's a phenomenal point. But I'm gonna reiterate: don't write anything off.
Well,
because
it's
where things go from here. God, dude, I've been like, my head's been running of just things that have happened since this. That chef's kiss.
Oh my God. Well, let me go back to talking about. Let's use this example again. Daredevil. It doesn't look like we know where it's going, and it's kind of a problem. Here's different. We don't know where it's going, but that doesn't matter because of the type of story that's telling.
Yeah.
And so again, I'm not mad by any of this. I'm not upset by any of this. It's just more of a, okay, please get to where we're going, please, because I don't want to end up like those people who do eventually just lose interest. But I'm also somebody who's a big character development person, and so look. Game of Thrones is also like that in a lot of ways. There's going to be a lot of things that you're not going to get callbacks to until I promise you the final episode of the show. Like there are things.
Yeah.
And like that's honestly a good similarity between Game of Thrones and One Piece, is that there are a lot of callbacks that happen later on, and something. I mean, this is kind of a spoiler. Some things that just never get answered, and you have to sit there and go, "Well, piss. What was this all about?"
And that's the thing about One Piece, is there are definitely things that also don't get answered, but the benefit of One Piece is it's still ongoing, so those questions can still get answered. Unlike the fact that George R.R. Martin is never finishing that fucking book, so you're never going to get the answer to them. Yeah,
I just bought on leatherback.
That collection. That collection is going to be unfinished. That final book is never coming out.
No. You see, that is the finished collection. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Collection.
That's the problem. I could talk about One Piece forever, but that's a great segue into my experience.
Speaking of Game of Thrones, Ned Stark died.
So, okay, I have a lot to say. We'll see how brief this stays, because I really want to talk about Andor with you, obviously.
It's gonna be a minute.
But so I've only watched one episode. I still have one more episode before I'm done with season 1. If we weren't recording on a Wednesday, I would have definitely finished, because I really wanted to watch this episode. Like, when I got home today, I actually really wanted to watch the episode, but I got home, went to the gym, showered, ate dinner, and then we hit record. Like, that is what my day has been. So I've had zero time. Maybe I'll watch it when we're done recording. Probably not, because it's super late and I have work tomorrow. And because I know that it's going to get heavy, but oh my God, dude. So okay, you know what's really funny? So the way that this episode starts off is we're back in the dungeon with Ned Stark. I, for the first minute, was like, oh shit, I started the previous episode, because the previous episode also starts off with Ned Stark in the dungeon. And I was like, oh shit, they just started the same episode again. So then I literally backed out of the episode on HBO on my TV, was like, oh, let me make sure I'm actually going to the next episode. And I was like, oh wait, this is the next episode.
Wait a minute. Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if you remember, but literally now, granted, my memory could be a little off, but I feel like they started off almost shot for shot the same, both episodes, in the sense of Ned being in the dungeon, and it's
again, that is also the type of show that is, and you're going to see that a lot. There's some arcs that'll happen in later seasons where characters will literally stay in the exact same spot that they were the entire time. So the biggest qualm that people had with, and this is kind of, I'm not going to make you watch unless you want to watch it, but one of the biggest qualms with House of the Dragon season 2 was that Matt Smith's character Daemon literally stayed in the same spot the entire season, and it was a big character season, and he has an incredible arc, but he stayed in the same spot the entire time, and so that's just a good example of that. That's what Game of Thrones is. It's slow. You're gonna be in the same spot for a while, and you're gonna have moments like that where it's like, wait, didn't this already happen? Didn't we get here? Wait a minute. I'm like super confused now. Sure.
Well, because that's the thing. This episode, again, literally starts off the exact same. Varys is begging Ned to not die. Ned is questioning Varys on where his loyalties lie. You have that whole quandary of, and I wrote down characters' names this time, so I should be better about it. But you have Varys and Ned Stark talking in the sense of like, hey, where do you like when we talk about acting school, we get a little bit of, like how Varys came up. He was castrated as a boy. He joined a theater troupe. He's only known actors and how to act, and he's playing a character for the betterment of the realm. Again, a lot of this is a very similar conversation to where we started off the last episode, but a little bit more backstory into Varys. This is also when and I'm gonna jump around a lot, but I'm gonna try and keep it a little bit consistent. It was very interesting, I guess, the way that Ned Stark goes throughout this episode, because I'm just going to say, I knew that Ned Stark died. I did not know he died this early. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I did not know. I expected he was going to die way later. When he was getting carted up to the podium, I was like, I don't know how, and I don't know why. He is dying right here, right now. Like, I can feel it. And it is, so the reason why I bring that up is because you have Varys who's begging Ned for his life, and Ned is so steadfast in his beliefs, his loyalties, his manliness. Like, I guess not manliness is not the right word for it, but his honor. Honor was something that was talked about quite a bit in the sense of like, I would not sacrifice my honor for my own life. But the only thing that gets him to question it is Varys brings up, what about your daughters? Not like even what about your family, specifically, what about your daughters? Because like that's the thing. It's like his sons are all older and strong, except for the one that's crippled now. But Bran, for the most part, like Bran. Bran wasn't in this episode, so I didn't write his name down, so I forgot it. But his daughter, like Ned's daughters, mean so much to him, and that was the only thing that later on. And again, I'll get into more of what happens with his inevitable death later. But like I don't know, it's very interesting.
Ned Stark dying was one of the. I knew a few things going into this show, which was kind of unfortunate when I watched it the first time. I knew Ned Stark died. I think that was kind of like really unavoidable, only because it is like the most infamous moment in the show. There's only one other thing that I can remember where I'm like, okay, no, that's might be a more infamous moment, but Ned Stark dying is the thing that kicks off the show in a completely different way, because you follow Ned Stark as the main character. He is the main character.
Ned Stark,
it's his story. And so what do you do with the show after the main character's dead? Where do you go? And you'll see in the next episode, they set it up very, very nicely. But it's a shocking thing that happens. And I didn't like, I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know it was going to happen the way it happened. But
I feel like I'm the exact same way, where I knew Ned Stark died. I know most of the main character deaths, I feel like, unfortunately, just because those are the things that are talked about the most, because they were all shocking when they happened. So then, of course, everyone talked about them. Sure. But I don't know I don't know the content, because I haven't watched the show. I don't know the context of any of these things. I don't know the gravity of why they happened or anything like that. And Ned Stark's death, again, happening the way that it did, was very interesting. But we're jumping around a little bit. I want to go back. I wrote down specifically Cersei is the queen who fucked her brother and the bitch queen. I wrote that down because I need to remember her name because I forgot it last episode. That is the first line in my notes. But yeah. So then after. I didn't write down every single scene that happens, so there might be small things that I missed. Yeah. But the next major thing that happens in this episode is you go back to Robb Stark, who's obviously building up his army to go defend his. Oh my god, dude, I'm not ready for next episode. I'm not, because I don't want to see what happens when Robb Stark finds, especially after what happens and what he does during this episode, which I'll get into later. Yeah. Which I have so many thoughts on that. I'm gonna try to not run insanely long on this, but I'm realizing how much I have to say about just this one episode. But So anyway, we jump to Robb Stark and his army, and they're at the crossing. In the sense of they have to cross this river through, I believe the name of it is literally just the crossing is where they're at.
Yes. Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I kind of, his name got lost to me somehow. Lord Frey. Is that the name of Walder Frey? Okay, I was right.
Just call him Mr. Filch from Harry Potter and just be done with it.
I noticed that immediately, and I was like, wait, I'm like, the cogs were turning, and I was like, why does he look so... Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, and to be fair, they're both grumpy old bitches, so it makes sense. Okay, so my first line about this is Lord Frey is rude and a child molester, because we get the first scene that we see is his hand on what we later find out is a 13-year-old's ass. I also my second line below this is and it's like a genuine thing, and I wonder if you can provide any context for this. I feel really bad for the child actors of this show. Now, I know a lot of the times when you have child actors in a show, you're able to do things like have them not be involved in the actual, like, obviously, when what's his name again? The son who's crippled. I'm sorry.
Bran.
When Bran catches them, like Cersei fucking her brother, obviously he's not watching that like actually happen in front of him. So like there's still that level of protection. And now I have a feeling that the ass that Lord Frey is touching is probably a stand-in, so that he's not actually molesting a child. I would hope. But like
either that or it's not actually a child. It is somebody who's like 18 and they just look
like a child. But like that's the thing that like I have. How do I say this without sounding terrible? I understand why these types of things are happening, because it's showing the depravity of this world and I guess the lack of morality, in the sense of it makes sense for the world that George R.R. Martin is building out. I don't like it. It makes me very uncomfortable, but I understand where he's going with it. And exactly, that's the point. But in terms of a book, that's just words on a page. When you're actually seeing real human actors, and again, they're acting, this isn't actually happening to them. I don't know. I literally wrote down, I feel bad for these child actors, because I don't know. Me watching the show on their behalf, I don't know. I get an icky feeling after watching this.
Right.
But anyway, so essentially we go through the whole thing with Lord Frey. They strike up a deal. For Robb to cross. He has to marry. There's like the whole like laundry list of deals. Robb has to marry one of the daughters.
Right.
He has to like. There's. I don't think I wrote all of it down.
The biggest one is that he's basically marrying Robb's.
And Robb had. Yeah. Those were the two marriages were the big one. The other one, and we haven't seen this yet, is Robb has to take one of Lord Frey's son as his squire. That was another one. I'm assuming that this squire is going to come in and probably become a character that we see pretty often. Don't spoil that for me, but I'm just assuming.
Yeah.
But also I wrote this down as well, because this was just hilarious. Is Robb's asking his mom after like this whole deal. He's like, one, can I say no? And she's like, no. And he asks the question of like, well, like, are any of them at least like pretty? And she's like, she like pauses for an uncomfortably long time and then goes, well, there's this one of them. And I was like, oh my God, like, oh, what horrible depravity if we opened up.
Can I say no? Well, not if you want to cross. What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not if you want to cross. And then he's like, well, at least if I accept, like, am I gonna get a decent wife? And she's like, well, you'll have a wife. And it's like, fuck.
You will.
You can tell Robb, like, but that's one of the things where, like, I like his loyalty to Ned, his father, is so strong that he's willing to marry a woman that he does not give a shit about right now, just to save his dad. And like, I feel like that scene, while it is funny, also just shows the dedication. And that's why I'm not ready for this next episode, because he made a deal with not the devil, but he made a terrible deal for himself, literally for nothing. literally for nothing, like absolutely fucking nothing.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see where that goes. Oh, this is another big one. Amon. Am I pronouncing that right? Amon? Yeah. We get a hint into his backstory, which that was a shock for me. I did not know this. This was one that was not. I literally sat there. I'm pretty sure my mouth was agape as we were finding out that he is a Targaryen. He was related to the Mad King. That whole drop, because the reason we get this obviously is because Jon Snow is finding out about what's happening with his family and his father's inevitable execution, and he's like, I need to be by Rob's side. And that's when Aemon is kind of like, he gives them that quandary. Like, he doesn't tell him not to go. He gives him that choice, and Jon Snow's like, you know nothing. Like, how could you understand what I'm going through? And that's when Aemon, with like complete like just calmness, is like, you don't know what I've been through, essentially, and then just like dumps like my entire family. And then Jon Snow's like, who are you? And then we get like the reveal, and I was like, oh shit! Like, what the fuck?
Maester Aemon is one of those characters in the show that I've always felt is like he's such a small part of the show, but he's so good in every scene, and I love that character so much.
Oh yeah, it was insane. Obviously we get the scene where Jon Snow gets his sword. I'm assuming that's like his main weapon now.
Yes.
Like that scene of like, you saved my life. Yeah, long claw. Like, why I'm like, you're giving me a sword of your family. It was like, you saved my life. You deserve, like, that was such a beautiful, I love that scene. So we get that whole scene that leads into the Aemon and the Jon Snow conflict. And obviously Jon doesn't go. He stays.
Sure. Right.
But that was really interesting. We then, and this is where I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. So obviously, Ned Stark is one of the main characters. But I do truly believe, granted it's his ensemble cast, but if you had to name a second main character, it is Daenerys Targaryen. Like, she is very clearly the second biggest character in the show, even though she definitely gets a lot less screen time than the other characters. Her story is very obviously the next biggest story, other than the whole story of the Stark family. But you have Khal Drogo, who is passed out off his horse. And he's suffering from an infection after getting stabbed. He's pretty fucked over. I didn't write down his name, but I wrote this. Oh yeah, I literally wrote this down. I wrote, Drogo passes out off his horse, and one of the guys whose name I don't care about is a mega bitch about it. There's a lot of characters where I could easily Google their names and look them up, but I could not care less about them because they're so fucking annoying and so, like, again, masterfully writtenly annoying, like understandably annoying, but I just hate them as human beings, like, because they're written to be that way. Yeah, Joffrey is one of them, but Joffrey I remember is because he's Joffrey. But yeah, so we have that going on with Drogo. And I'm just gonna tell all of Drogo's story now, just because I have a lot more else to say. But I'm just gonna encapsulate it so I don't, like, because what I'll do, I'll tell my thoughts on Drogo's story. I'll tell the Stark stuff, and then we'll call it, since we need to move on to Andor. But with the Drogo stuff, skip forward. He is going to die that night. He's going to die. Jorah kills the guy who keeps running his mouth. Great scene, by the way. Fucking phenomenal. Fantastic. Love that. He's also, Jorah is the most loyal character in the entire fucking show. Literally no one holds a candle to him at all whatsoever.
Well, it's funny. Like, he's the most loyal character to the show, yet at the same time, it's all based on a lie.
Yeah.
It's all based on a lie.
He's
spying. He was spying for the Baratheons because he wanted to clear his name. That's the whole point of the character. That's the whole reason Ned freaks out initially about, you want to kill a child. Where'd you get this information? Oh, Jorah Mormont. He's been spying for us. And that's the irony of his characters, that like he's the most loyal, trustworthy character, yet it's all built on a fucking lie.
Yeah.
And it's bullcrap. It's genius writing, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree. But then you have the witch who comes in and starts performing. The dark magic ritual isn't over yet. But we have the whole dark magic rituals going over. Horse gets its throat slit. Poor horse. I wrote that down. Poor horse.
Poor horse.
Poor horse. But Daenerys starts giving birth right as the dark magic is going on, and gets taken into the room that they told no one was going to go into while the dark magic was going on. And it is such a I want to see what happens. I'm so curious. But I don't. Drogo is one of those characters. I don't know literally anything about where his story goes. I don't know if he dies.
Sure.
I don't know if he lives. I don't want to know until I find out naturally, obviously. So I'm very curious to see what happens with this whole dark magic ritual thing. I also know nothing about Daenerys' like kid. I know nothing about any of that stuff. Like, I feel like I know nothing about their story other than eventually she gets dragons. That's like the only thing I know, I feel like.
Eventually she gets dragons.
Yeah. Eventually, at some point in the show, she gets dragons. Because she is known as the mother of all dragons. Like, that's like...
There's a running joke about how Daenerys, she even starts off by saying, "I will sail to Westeros. I will take the Iron Throne." Great. Another season goes by. Are we gonna get close to that throne? No. Oh, okay. It's really funny. You'll see that.
Yeah.
It's a running joke. It's so, my God, I laugh every time I think about it because it really is funny. And it's, oh God. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
But yeah. So, well, that's all I have for Daenerys is because, again, you don't get a lot of it here. You get a lot of like depth to what happens because, again, you have Drogo might die. There's dark magic going on. Daenerys is going into labor. So I'm curious to see where that ends up. But then the bigger one is Robb Stark's story, and Ned Stark, obviously. And dude, the fight scene, or should I say, the lack of a battle scene in the most insane fucking way, dude. Holy shit. What? like when I did a double, I'm still baffled by how shit went down in the show. Like I'm air 404ing right now because it was so insane. Because Tyrion Lannister gets knocked out, and then the battle's over, and
it's done.
That's it. There was you see some bodies falling. What the fuck? And I'm jumping around a little bit because I did want to get a little bit into how Tyrion Lannister, you have the whole woman in the tent that is like super mysterious and things like that. Curious to see where that goes. You have obviously they play that guessing game of like I can read people really well and he can't read her like at all. It's a very, very interesting scene. She can read him like a book. Curious to see where that whole thing goes. But yeah, no, the Tyrion Lannister getting knocked the fuck out and then the battle being over. And then of course it's like the I don't know, this show's great. I honestly, when I'm watching the show, I enjoy it. Like it's fun. I feel like I enjoy I enjoy talking about the show.
Yeah.
Almost more than I enjoy watching the show to a degree, just because it makes me actually think about what's happening. Of the expert writing in just this battle scene. And again, it's like, oh, well, there was only 2,000 men. Well, where oh, why were there only 2,000 men? Like, where was the rest? Where was Ned Stark? Was Ned Stark with them? Was Robb Stark with them? No, he was with the other 18,000. And then I was like, what? Like, where was the rest of them? Oh, yeah, he was with the rest of the 18,000 men that have now actually just won. They won. Like the Lannisters thought they were going to win because there was only 2,000 of them and they decimated them. And
they outwit,
and then all of a sudden it's like, nope, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was insane. And And then, of course, you have the whole thing of Robb Stark being like, I just sent 2,000 men to their deaths today. And that was such a, like, impactful moment where he kind of, like, has to grapple with the gravity of what he just did. Like, I like, people will sing fables, but it will never make up for the fact that I just murdered 2,000 men today of my own men in order to win this war. Yeah, it was a necessary evil, but that doesn't make it not evil. And he's having to ask that moral quandary, kind of like with what I was talking about back with Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint of, is the lives of a few worth the lives of the many? It's kind of funny that I read and watched these at the same time, because they're both telling that same story of is it okay to put the lives of the many above the lives of the few when those lives of the few still have lives that matter.
Right.
And then ultimately, here's the other thing that's so ballistic about it is none of their deaths matter. Absolutely none. The 2,000 men that died, any of the 18,000 men that died, none of it matters because Ned Stark fucking dies. Ned Stark goes up, and this is where I'll end it so that we can talk about Andor. But Ned Stark goes up there, proclaims Joffrey as king. I was not expecting that. I did not think. I thought he was going to, I knew he was going to be executed. I thought it was because he was going to die a man of honor and he was going to be like, no, I refuse. No, he stands up there, confesses crimes that he didn't even commit, goes, I declare Joffrey as king. I fully recognize Joffrey as king. Joffrey, and I wrote this down. I wrote this line down. They are but, so my mother and, why am I blanking on her name? Because I didn't write this part down. The older daughter. Sansa. Yeah, Sansa. My mother and Sansa would have me let this traitorous man live, but they are but the weak hearts of women. Baron, bring me his head.
Sir Ilyn,
and then chaos erupts. And then Ned Stark dies.
Up until this point, like Joffrey's a bit of a spoiled kid. He can be a dick.
Yeah.
You've seen it. But it's not really until this moment just how far Joffrey like is just like in like a crazy level, just like I'm entitled, I'm spoiled, I get what I want. And it's not until this moment that you realize it.
Here's the thing. I hate Cersei, obviously. I've talked about this. His mom is terrible.
Yeah.
Even Cersei tells Joffrey not to do this. Like, this is how fucked up what Joffrey is doing is. Even Cersei says, do not do this. You are making a mistake, and tries to stop Joffrey. That is how terrible what is going on is right now.
Yeah. Well, because technically, they could have ended the entire war had Ned Stark, just went to the wall, lived out in exile. Yeah, it would have been wrongful exile, but it would have ended the war. Robb potentially would have backed off. Sansa, honestly, showing mercy for her father, might end up, still loving Joffrey, still caring enough to actually want to
that's gone. Any love that she had for Joffrey, gone. You can tell that. It died with Ned Stark.
It literally died with Ned Stark.
I wrote down I put a screenshot of our text message that I sent you after watching that scene in the notes, and I'm just going to read it for the audience. Pardon my excessive language. Fuck you. Fuck this show. And more than anything in this world, and I wrote this line by line in all caps, fuck all the way to hell, Joffrey. Yeah, that sums up my entire thoughts of that scene.
I had a similar reaction with Andor.
I knew Ned would die. I knew Ned would die, and I knew that Joffrey was a bitch. But oh my god, let's talk about Andor, because I am just gonna sit here and complain and talk about this forever, and I want to think about anything but how much I hate Joffrey right now. So please, Carson, let's get to the actual main topic of the show. Nearly 2 hours into talking. What are your thoughts on Andor?
Brandon.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Andor? Tell me.
Genuinely, I am starting this? Okay.
Yeah. No. Like that's not just a joke. Let's transition. I want to talk about Andor.
You didn't hire an assassin to kill me for what I'm about to say, right? No. Okay. Andor is the greatest thing Star Wars has ever produced. I think it is genius. It is masterful. It's not even fair to call it Star Wars. The only thing that rivals it is the Clone Wars, and that's just because of what Clone Wars is able to accomplish. I love Empire Strikes Back, and I love that original trilogy. That is Star Wars to me, and I enjoy Revenge of the Sith. I can't wait for that to come back for its 20th anniversary on the 25th.
Yep, in theaters. Yep.
Andor does something that I did not expect it to do, which is let's take this character from Rogue One, where we know he's going to end up, and let's create and craft this story that does not need to be told, but is so worth every second of it. And I'm so glad they told it. When they announced this show, I remember I was at a mall when they announced that they were going to do the show. And originally they had pitched the show as it's Cassian Andor and K2SO's origin story. That was it. It wasn't just Andor. Like Andor obviously would be the main character. K2SO was not going to be the main character of a show. But that's how they originally had pitched it. And I actually remember going, that's so stupid. That's going to fail and bomb so hard. I love Rogue One. I actually think Rogue One is my favorite Star Wars movie of all of them. I think it's genius. It's depth. It shows the dark side of the rebellion. And it tells a story about these simple people just standing up against evil. And I think it's really well done. Andor does the exact same thing, but to a much deeper level. Funny enough, I started watching the show, and about 3 episodes in, right after episode 3 ends, after Cassian runs off with Luthien to go do this side hustle for Luthien and whatnot, I actually remember thinking to myself, wait a minute, this is what Solo, a Star Wars story, was supposed to be. I'm just like, a guy down in the dumps, makes it big, finds a crew. I'm like,
yeah,
this is exactly what Solo, a Star Wars story was supposed to be, except they did it right here. What the heck happened? I think the biggest thing that this show has going for it, though, is the way they write the characters. The scenes don't feel like a scene from a Star Wars story. It feels like people talking, like a normal conversation. All the emotional moments of Integral. I mean, Cassian's whole point of what starts off the show is he's looking for his sister, and he gets into a scuffle with cops who are just dirty. I say cops, corpse,
space
police, space police, corpse who are just dirty and just want to rob him and mug him of his money. And it starts off this whole thing, and then then we see some of Cassian's backstory about how he lived on Canary, and was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But fortunately, even though probably everybody on that planet is dead, was fortunate enough to run into his mom, and she saves him, gets him off world, and raises Cassian as her son, and it's incredibly sweet. And each moment that Diego Luna, is it Luna his last name?
Yeah,
Diego. I think Diego Luna. He's just so good.
It is Diego Luna.
Funny enough, because I mentioned I rewatched Rogue One after watching Andor, just because I wanted to see the comparisons. Rogue One, out of all the characters, maybe other than the pilot, other than the Imperial pilot, Andor, funny enough, may have been one of my least favorite of the characters.
Even after the rewatch?
Even after no, not after the rewatch. But like if I would just watch Rogue One on its own, Cassian would be lower on the list. He'd still be a good character, but he definitely would have been lower on the list. And then you watch Andor and watch Rogue One, and it enhances everything. And he talks about the passion of what, like the whole argument that he and Jin have after the death of Jin's father. Is literally Cassian saying, I didn't shoot him. Like, yeah, I went up there. I was planning to kill him, but I didn't pull the trigger. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
And she starts talking about how, like, well, this, and this, and this. And Cassian just finally opens up and goes, listen, I've been in this fight since I was young. Since as long as I can remember. Since I was 6. And then you cut back to the moment when he literally was 6 and he's taken off this planet by people who are essentially rebels, because that's who his mom is.
Yeah.
And the fun thing about this, and what I love about Cassian's arc, is that he goes from somebody who obviously doesn't like the Empire, but he doesn't want to fight for the rebellion. He wants to fight for himself, and he wants to fight for his mom. And it's the moment, he goes on this whole insane journey of, he does this one mission for the rebellion. He gets some money. He starts a new life. He goes to prison, which we'll talk about that in a second. He breaks out of prison only to find out that his mom is dead. And this whole time, even though he said, I'm going back to you, I'm going to get you out of this place, I got to get free for myself right now, though, while things die down. And his mom dies. And now that he has gone through prison, the biggest thing that he saw was how the Empire is literally taking people, because he's seen it firsthand. They might not have done anything. They literally may have just been passing through, and the Empire took them and now are holding these people hostage in this prison that they know are never going to escape. And so Cassian then makes, after the death of his mom, the conscious choice to, I'm going back to this planet, I'm freeing Bix, and then once they're all set, I'm finding Luthien and I'm joining this fight for the rebellion, like my mom said that I would eventually do. And I cried, because that is the most beautiful arc for a character to want to join the rebellion, is finally seeing, like, not just wanting to fend for themselves, going to finding out what the Empire really is, what they've been doing. And really, it's the connection to Kino that makes Andor even realize just how bad this is. Kino is this man who's who has been imprisoned here for a while, and he is this leader of this, I guess, faction in the prison, and believes he just gets out and he goes home and it's done. And what's really tragic about Kino's character is, oh my god, dude, when I sent you that text the other day of like, fuck this show is so stupid, why did I ever watch this? It was the moment. I don't think there have been any other words there 3 words. There's never been any 3 words that have hurt me more other than I don't want to go. Or no, that way, that's Dr. Who.
Yeah.
What's the thing that Spider-Man says?
I don't want to go. That's the lines that Spider-Man says. Yeah, I don't want to go. Mr. Stark, I don't want to go. Yeah.
And then there's those words that haunt me to this day. And then
and they haunt all of us.
The other words that haunt me now are, I can't swim. It is the most heartbreaking thing to watch.
It really is.
Everything. It is such an emotional scene too. One way out. Yeah. He literally gets everybody together. And you see the beginning of leadership in Cassian. Even though Kino was the one to give the speech, Cassian was right there to coach Kino along the way. Like, you can do this. Just do this. You've done this multiple times. Now lead. And you see Cassian kind of step up as his leader to break out of the prison against the Empire. And it's the beginning of his rebel story. And it's so sad that Kino's dead. I want Andy Serkis back. That's this role in season 2. Kino's dead, and I know he ain't coming back.
Yeah.
If he wasn't getting out in that moment, the Empire definitely would have killed everybody else who's in that prison.
And I feel like that line of "I can't swim," it like you said, it is such a it is such an impactful way to basically kill off a character, because you don't see him die, but those lines basically are like, I am dead. At this moment, from the second I say these words, I am dead. And as I agree with you, I loved Andy Serkis in this role. I love Andy Serkis in like everything I've seen him in.
He's good. He's fun.
But I will say, if they bring him back for season 2, other than for flashbacks, which that would be really weird to have flashbacks for that, I would be kind of upset. I would be upset, because again,
not everything has to get answered.
Exactly that impact of I can't swim. Again, he died in that moment, and I don't want the character to die because I love the character, but I do want him to be dead for the sense of the weight that moment carries for the show.
Yeah. Well, and again, he might not be. We're never going to get that answer. I hope we never get that answer, but he might not be dead, and that's up to speculation. It's fine to be up to speculation. It's just one of those things of like, it's one of the most tragic things Star Wars has ever done. I think, honestly, ever. I'm your father. Sure, that's tragic. It's pretty tragic. Anakin turning and killing younglings. Okay, I guess that's pretty tragic. No, Kino saying I can't swim after going through hell and doing everything he possibly fucking can to get these people out. It's just even now I'm ranting about it because I'm just like so emotionally distraught about it because I'm like, dude, come on, man. He was right there. And now he's probably dead. They probably killed him because what are they going to... It's just it's a heartbreaking moment, but it's such a big, impactful character moment for Cassian to understand where the Empire truly is, how they actually operate, how they've literally just taken people from. Okay, there's probably evil people in that prison, but I'm willing to bet money on the fact that most of the people there are wrongly accused people and are just there.
Yeah, at least their crimes are overblown from what maybe they did commit crimes. Maybe they aren't squeaky clean citizens, but there's definitely a big question mark. After you get to meet some of the characters in the prison, you definitely have a big question mark in terms of, are you actually evil scum who deserve to be in prison? Probably not.
Yeah. And honestly, I think Cassian's arc is just so beautiful in this story, and I love every second of it. The other thing that makes this story just so good, truthfully, is like Rogue One, it showed you the dark sides of the rebellion. I mean, literally the first scene with Cassian in Rogue One is him meeting this guy and learning about the Imperial pilot, about the Death Star plan, or not about the Death Star plans, but about how there's an Imperial pilot who wants to flip and give information to the rebellion, which technically at that time, the rebellion was like, it's at its height, but it's still technically starting out. They don't know about the Death Star yet. But Cassian, in order to save his own skin, to avoid letting the stormtroopers know that he was even there in the first place, kills the guy who gave up the information freely and was literally talking about how it's getting dangerous. I can't stay here. I just want to go home. And he kills him. And this show with Andor is no different, because after the heist goes down, after they've lost so many people, after getting all this money for the rebellion, even though Cassian was doing it for himself, out comes the Thing, or oh god, how do I say his name? Evan Moss Baccarat. I always get his name wrong.
It sounds right from what I remember.
I think it's Eben Moss Baccarat. That's where I get it wrong. As Skeeb, who is the biggest piece of garbage ever, who literally goes through this whole thing of, let's get this money. I'm totally in for the rebellion. Yeah, I'm actually here in the rebellion because of my brother. And then you have this last conversation between him and Andor as this one kid is dying after sacrificing himself for the rebellion. With the girl leader in the tent, you literally had Skeeb go up to Andor and be like, we could split the money 50-50. We could drop it here. And Cassian's like, well, what about your brother? He goes, yeah, I don't have a brother. And it goes to show just how even in the rebellion, people only care about themselves. And it's so... I can't say anything more about it, because it's something that Star Wars has never touched on. And it's so beautifully done that it feels so... I don't know. It's very impactful. Obviously, we have Mon Mothma in the show with Luthien. The whole point of Andor is, yes, it's Andor's story. It's him rising up the rebellion, but it also showing how the rebellion in its early stages was in different factions, almost like the Mandalorian were. Like, they all are Mandalorian, but they all have different sets of rules and different types of things. And the rebellion is no different in a sense. Like, they have the core rebellion who believe in this rules, but then you have the other set of rebellion that's led by Saw Gerrera, who believe in like the old tricks of the Jedi, and so they live here. And it's interesting to see the rebellion start to come together, and that's where I'm really excited about season 2 in a few weeks. From what I understand, what season 2 is, and tell me if I'm wrong, but this is what I've heard, is that season 2 is 3 episodes each week, but it's each 3 episodes are telling a specific year in Cassian's time with the rebellion leading up to Rogue One.
From what I remember, you are on the money for what we know. And then literally the last 3 episodes are just right. Like, again, we'll see how actual this is, but from what I've heard, it literally is just like, I wouldn't be surprised if the last episode ends with where he starts off in Rogue One. Because this is supposed to cover his time with the rebellion leading directly into Rogue One. Like that is this is the only other season we're getting, and it will end with Rogue One, and obviously Andor's story ends in Rogue One. But I sorry. I don't want to hijack this whole thing because I do want to keep talking about Andor because that's what we're talking about. But one of the reasons why I really liked Andor when it came out, and it's, I guess, kind of a commentary on where Star Wars has its flaws and where it's good right now with just the entire universe. So a lot of people have a big problem with, like, why does everything need to have the Skywalkers in it? Like, whatever. But it's like, you have the side where it's like, oh, well, the Skywalkers are where this whole thing kicked off. Like, there wouldn't be a current war if it wasn't for the Skywalker family, which they are correct. Yes. Like the world of Star Wars would not be where it is right now if it was not for the Skywalker family, whether that be Luke or Anakin or whatever. But I do appreciate having things like Mandalorian or things like Andor, where you get to see into a, like, not a lesser extent, but to a different extent, Solo, and getting to see the different parts of the galaxy, kind of like with one of the reasons why I love One Piece again. I'm gonna bring everything back to One Piece because One Piece is amazing, but the thing that makes One Piece great is, again, it's all the different stories that come together and build up in a world. Now, granted, this is just one continuous show, but it's broken up into arcs that are essentially their own little TV shows in and of themselves, if you want to think about it like that follow different sub-characters and different plot lines and things like that. And they have the through line of the Straw Hat crew. You don't realize how impactful of a statement I just made is until you get a little bit later on. But that's kind of how, in my eyes, the Star Wars universe is, where the Straw Hat crew is the Skywalkers. Those are the constants. Those are what brings the world together. That what caused a lot of this to happen. But then you still get all of these other worlds and all of these other characters in Andor, in Solo, in Mandalorian that flesh out and build out the world and give more gravity to why these, like, things, like, for instance, the Death Star blowing up all these planets. Well, in the original trilogy, granted, obviously, you can feel the gravity of of a planet blowing up. Not three, that's later. But you can feel the gravity of a planet blowing up. You don't realize how impactful that is until you get to know the people that were on that planet that Leia came to love. And that's where, again, you have your through line, but then you have your additional spin-offs that give you that additional context that is really appreciated. And I hope we get more of, and we are kind of getting more of that than we are of the Skywalker story right now. And again, Andor, and I guess there's three pillars right now. You have Mandalorian, Andor, and Skeleton Crew, which I still haven't seen, and I need to see Skeleton Crew. Maybe I'll watch it after Last of Us, because I need to watch Last of Us, obviously, for next week's conversation. But you have those pillars of all these side conversations that are kind of building out the world. And that's what makes the Star Wars universe interesting, is you have a through line with a giant world. And that's why I don't mind that Luke Skywalker appeared in Mandalorian, and I don't mind that Leia might show up in a few things, or Luke might show up in a few things, or Anakin showing up in Ahsoka, or I don't mind that, because they're not the main focus of it. They're just proving that that's what the through line of this entire saga of Star Wars that we're telling is.
Sure. Right. I also want to point out just like how different this is from a normal Star Wars project. This is literally the first Star Wars project ever to reference sex. I just want to point that out.
Yeah.
Literally in episode 1, Bix goes to her boyfriend's place, and it's very clearly incited what's going to happen. And you're like, that's not a Star Wars thing. That never happens in Star Wars.
Well,
like, it's never referenced.
That's very similar to, like, with Eternals, where they actually have a sex scene in Eternals.
Yeah.
Like, granted, Eternals, love it or hate it, it's interesting of, like, you get a more mature, but here's the thing, not necessarily mature, because here's a question, and this is something that I don't know if this is the thought process that was going on or not, but, like, and this is just a really weird question, and we don't have to get into this, but in the sense of, like, sex is one of those things that's like, it is the most mature thing or whatever. But it's like, is sex really that much more of a big deal than the fact that you also have all these deaths that are happening and all these characters that, like, these worlds that are being blown up, and sex is treated so differently in a way in a lot of these properties. Like, you're willing to show children like arms getting chopped off and people dying and planets blowing up, but sex is something that you like hide off in a back corner somewhere.
No, the difference is that it's grounded and it feels human when you add an element like that, which Star Wars has never done before. Star Wars has always been fun, and I love Star Wars to death. Again, the reason I love Rogue One is because of how human that story feels when it's just simple people fighting against evil. And when you look at Star Wars objectively, and I love that original trilogy to death. I will watch that any given day of the week, anytime. It's phenomenal. It is action adventure, a great time. You have a blast from start to finish. I mean, it is essentially like a superhero project. It's like watching the MCU. You watch what's a good example? You watch Ant-Man. It's not a dark story. It's a pretty fun, lighthearted story. But then you watch something like Winter Soldier, or honestly, dare I say, Daredevil and Jessica Jones, which is incredibly grounded. And it is so human. It tells such a human story. Star Wars has never done that before. And that's what's so special, and why I truly believe this is the greatest thing Star Wars has ever done in live action, because of the fact that it is a very human story and you can relate on a personal level, unlike what you have been able to in the past. Andor does what other shows and films in the Star Wars universe haven't done, which is tell the human story connection. The only exception to that rule, and I say this again, is Clone Wars. Clone Wars was just Clone Wars is able to do a lot more with Star Wars than I feel like anything live action could ever do, purely because it's animated.
Oh, absolutely.
But
and
also,
because it was so long running.
It was so long running too, and you saw Ahsoka's story is also a very grounded story. I do give it that. Ahsoka is like the one outlining exception when I say that there's not really a human story in Star Wars. I think Ahsoka's is very much a very human story, even though it's a bunch of lightsabers and blasters and pew 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 stuff.
Yeah.
But kind of bringing this to like a big halting point, at least for me. I cried at the end of Rogue One, and when I saw it in the theaters for the first time, which I was shocked in theaters watching this movie back in 2016. I walked out with my grandpa. Well, I got a fun story about that, actually. This is kind of a sidetrack, but I actually walked out of the theater for Rogue One for the first time, and I opened my phone and it said, Carrie Fisher dead. Huh? But she was just in the movie. De-aged. I'm like, that's poorly timed. But no, all joking aside, I cried at the end of Rogue One this time around, because even though Andor as a show isn't complete and we haven't seen Cassian truly fighting within the rebellion, and we're seeing that in season 2, knowing that he's basically going to Luthien and making this promise to his mom, like, I'm going to fight for the rebellion. I'm going to stop the Empire. And knowing that that's exactly where his character ends up, is dying on a planet to the Death Star, but dying by doing the most noble thing, which is getting the plans and the one weakness that can stop the Empire. It's like Poe Dameron's line in Last Jedi. We are the spark that lights the fire to burn down the First Order. And Cassian in the exact same way is the spark that ignites the fire for the Rebel Alliance to then burn down the Empire. It is perfect, and it is beautiful, and I can't wait to watch season 2 of Andor and then go rewatch Rogue One, because I really want to see just how far Cassian's story like connects, and just seeing him change, because again we've seen the change in him to want to fight for the Rebel Alliance, but we haven't exactly seen anything in regards to him fighting for the Rebel Alliance yet, except the one odd job he did, which was for them. I'm also excited to see K2SO finally, because they promised that for the original show, and then we never got that. So we got another Imperial droid, but it wasn't K2SO. Director Krennic who is confirmed to be back. He's in the trailer for Andor season 2. He is confirmed to be coming back. I think that's really exciting. I want to know what other characters might pop up as well. I have a strong feeling that Baylan Organa is going to show up at one point. I do have a strong feeling we're not done yet with Saw Gerrera. We're going to see him one more time. And then I want to know where Luthien's story ends. He's the only one where I have sat here and gone, I love Luthien's character because he truly is somebody who, like, he is the one of the first people who wants to take down the Empire. And he's like one of the first people on the train. But I don't know where his character ends up. And I would imagine that he's dead, considering Rogue One, there's no reference to Luthien. There's no reference of this other person. I would imagine that he's probably going to die. So I really want to see how this happens and how it works. Long story short, I'm excited to see what Andor season 2 brings. And whereas I think it has a lot to live up to.
Yeah.
I'm ready for the journey. Seriously.
Well, and that was one of the things I was going to kind of go into, and you kind of did it on your own in the sense of, like, what are you excited to see with, like, obviously the reason we're talking about Andor season 1 right now is because Andor season 2 is literally, like, what, week and a half, 2 weeks away. Because I know it drops basically with The Last of Us, and we're talking about Last of Us season 1 next week so that we can talk about Last of Us season 2 coming out. But one thing that I'm very interested to see is, like you said, like, to my understanding as well, is the way that this is work is each 3 episodes covers like a section of time. It's not going to be necessarily, there's obviously going to be the continuous story of Andor, but to my understanding, it'll be kind of like 3 segmented off, or I think it's 4, because I think it's
right.
Or is it 3 or it's like I think it's 3 weeks if I remember correctly. So like 3 sets of 3. I think it's 9 episodes.
Yes.
And I'm very curious to see, I guess, how they tell that story in a way that feels like the first one, like the first season.
Yeah.
Because thinking back to the first season,
it won't.
Yeah, and I hope that they can still live up to the, I guess, legacy that it left, because it's going to tell the story from what we know in a very different way. Like, thinking back the first season, you have a lot of like, you have an entire episode basically dedicated to them in the prison making, I can't remember, they were making bombs or making parts for I can't remember exactly.
They were making parts for the Death Star. That was the whole point.
Yeah, they were making parts for the Death Star, and you get like an entire episode like dedicated to just that. Now, you can only do that because you have, what, 9 episodes to work with, and you can kind of have those like slower paced episodes. Now, granted, it's not slow paced because it's obviously building to something, and you're learning about the other characters through these moments. You're learning about their escape plan and things of that nature, but you can't get that as much if you're only telling like 3 full stories in 3 episodes.
Right. Yeah.
So I like, again, that's one of the reasons I loved Andor so much when I watched it, is because you get episodes like the time in prison. And again, you have like the whole thing of the floor is lava. Like, that was a whole big deal where the floor was, I think, like electrified or whatever. And there's a lot of like things where they step, like one of the characters steps on the floor and dies, and it's really like shell shock. And you move a little bit slower in those moments to build up the characters and the gravity of the situation. And when you spread that out in the way that, again, I'm assuming, and from what I remember they've said they're going to be doing, are you going to be able to live up to Andor season 1? Again, I'm not saying they can't, but I think you might lose some of what made Andor special in telling the story in this way, if that's the way that this does end up going.
Well, and vice versa, this could end up enhancing Andor season 1 and enhancing Rogue One like the first season of Andor did. I trust, which it's funny saying I trust and having Star Wars in the same sentence, especially with Acolyte coming out recently and a lot of other things happening recently. But I trust the creators of the Andor series to finish this story in a way that is satisfying and in a way that completes the story of all of these characters and Cassian Andor's character in a very satisfying way. Looking forward to Andor season 2 is a great segue to ask our final question, which is, what are you excited for other than AmazeCon this weekend, Brandon?
Awesome Con.
Awesome Con.
But
brother.
So Carson, this is an absolutely ballistic week for me. Because one, I'm starting Last of Us season 1. Haven't seen it. Really excited to see it. I'm gonna be finishing Mashle season 2. Do you know what comes out this weekend? While I'm at AwesomeCon, mind you, because again, I'm going to AwesomeCon Friday, Saturday, Sunday this weekend. Do you know what is happening?
I'm trying to think.
You won't, because after 6 months on hiatus, One Piece anime is returning to a weekly schedule with a 2-episode drop. One's dropping April 5th, one is dropping April 6th, and then we will get into weekly episodes. I believe it's every Sunday. This will be my first time watching One Piece weekly, because I actually, so they announced that they were going on hiatus for the 6-month hiatus while I was watching One Piece for the first time. So I was like, can't remember what point I was in the story, but like while I was watching One Piece, my friend Sharon, who's one of the people who got me into One Piece, she sent me, and it was like, we were talking about like, oh, they're going on hiatus. And I was like, oh, great. Like I'll hopefully, it was really funny because I was like, oh, maybe I'll be able to catch up before they're off hiatus. And then I caught up like immediately. And then I have like 5 months of them being on hiatus. But yeah, this will be my first opportunity watching One Piece week to week, and dude, I'm so excited. I watched the trailer of this upcoming 2 episodes. Oh my god, dude, we're so back, and I'm gonna like, I will just say, I am so upset that I will not be able to talk about One Piece at all on this podcast in terms of what I'm watching week to week, even though I will be, because it will be a big spoiler for you. But dude, yeah. I like there's a lot that I'm excited for. Because literally in 1 week we have the Switch 2 announcement, One Piece returning. I'm going to also, like, this is a big busy week for me, so I have a lot that I'm excited for. And then again, we already talked about it. Last of Us season 2 and Andor season 2 are right around the corner, and we're going to talk about them, obviously. But we're about to go down a big, like, non-stop things are released. Dude, you know what also comes out this weekend, and I might watch on one of the nights that I'm not partying at AwesomeCon? The Minecraft movie. I might go see the Minecraft movie this. It drops like tomorrow night. The Minecraft movie like releases like tomorrow night. Yeah, IGN gave it a 6, by the way. IGN gave it a 6 for whatever that is worth.
That's not possible.
Hey, IGN is terrible at reviewing. I only bring that up because they're the only one that I saw a review for. But they gave Invincible season finale for season 2 a 4. So if that tells you anything about how good IGN is at ranking things, they're not. But yeah. Anyway, is there anything that you're excited for this week?
I mean, no, looking ahead to the future, I'm excited to rewatch Last of Us again in preparation for the review, but I'm excited for Last of Us season 2. I'm a big fan of the games. I think that story is incredible. Love it or hate it with the second game. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Last of Us season 2. Obviously, Andor, I'm excited. Oh God, it sounds so corny. I am so excited for WrestleMania later this month, because
is it later this month?
It's later this month. I only recently really got into wrestling, but it like the writing is so good and it's so entertaining.
Well, I admittedly, I don't like wrestling. Like, it's not that I don't like what I don't like it. I don't like the idea of fighting. Like, it's just not for me.
It's just funny. That's why I like it.
The only thing I know about is the whole John Cena thing that's going on right now because of how monumental that is of him like turning heel. I didn't even know what turning heel was, and then everyone started talking about it, so then I like had to go watch everything and find out. But yeah, no, I can understand why you're excited because I know this is a big deal with everything that's been going on with wrestling right now.
No, it's hype. Cena and Rhodes going head to head. We have CM Punk and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins going head to head in a triple threat match, both being main events of WrestleMania. I'm excited to see Logan Paul get destroyed. Because
honestly, if I watch anything, it'll just be to watch Logan Paul get his abs. I hate Logan Paul, or hate's a strong word, but I don't like Logan Paul.
I don't either. Yet I still watched his documentary. Oh my god!
I believed he was redeemable until the crypto scam with CryptoZoo, and then he just fucked that up, and it was just a whole mess. And I don't know. I can't forgive him for that. It's funny terrible.
I started watching his documentary on HBO Max, which I can't believe I'm saying that I did, but it's so entertaining watching him be a complete narcissist. I love it to death.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, those are the things I'm really excited for this month. What else? I'm going to go watch the Minecraft movie. I don't want to, but I'm going to watch it.
If I wasn't going to Awesome, well, I might go see it tomorrow. I think it releases tomorrow, because of obviously like the Thursday premieres. I think I think there's a pre-showing, so I might go see it tomorrow. Just because I will be too busy this weekend. I'll be at Awesome Con all weekend, and I'll be exhausted. Sure. So I might go see it tomorrow. Possibly. Maybe we'll talk about that in the What Have We Been Watching next week, and we can either shit on it or laugh about it or whatever.
Yeah, that sounds like a death sentence. But with that being said, speaking of death sentences, Ned Stark, and I'm going to leave you with that. But no, speaking of that, wrapping it all together, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. We release this podcast every single Sunday. You can find us on every single streaming platform service, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Pretty much we're everywhere and anywhere. You can find us. You can find us on all social media platforms under @NerdyNimrods. And so, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. This has been Juggernaut, a.k.a. Carson, with
Parrotfish, a.k.a. Brandon.
Stay nerdy.